Alright, it seems like we are live. I'm just trying to set this thing up. Okay, we have one person watching. If you come in, please say hi, just so that I know you guys are over there. Can wait for a little bit while everyone comes in. Let me just move some stuff around. So I want to put the chat over here. Could really use two monitors right now. Fortunately, I don't have two monitors here. I have a very minimal setup. Okay, we got 4 people. Say hello when you come in, guys, so that I know you're there. This is going to be our live set review. Oh yeah, I forgot to change, I guess, the name. Okay, just 1 second. Let me just change the name. Ryoko Iochi, am I saying your name right? Hello, man. How's it going? This is not Breakpoint, this is Fates Collide set review. Okay, I guess. Okay. I'm trying to see if I can have the chat window open, because last time that I streamed and I was talking about the new set, you guys were chiming in with ideas all the time, and I kept talking about the things you were saying, but the people that watched the video later couldn't really know what I was talking about, so I hope this makes it a little bit better this time. So I have the chat over here, above my head, over here, or here, I guess. Okay. Are you guys having trouble seeing me? Are the video settings okay, or can we start? This is telling me that the stream health is not good, but I hope you guys can still see me, because usually it says this, but you guys can see me anyway, so I don't know. Yeah, I think we can start. So I'll start the set review, and I don't know, you guys can come in and tell me what you think whenever. We're here on Poke Beach. They usually have all the they had all the English spoilers ahead of time. I guess this time they don't, but we have the Japanese cards and we have the set list, so we actually know which cards are in the set, so that we can actually know what are the right cards for the set review, which I always like to wait for. I don't really like to do the set reviews for the Japanese sets, because sometimes stuff changes, so we will get some extra cards from promos or stuff like that. Oh, you love my Portuguese beard. Thank you. Is there such a thing as a Portuguese beard? I don't know. I don't know. I'm just too lazy to shave every single day, and plus I hate shaving all the way, because I don't think I look that great. So now I have the beard the same height of my hair, so it's kind of weird that way, but thank you anyway. Okay, so let's start with a set review, I guess. Enough beard talk. I guess we start off with Shuckle, which is actually an interesting Pokemon. Hide Berries, I guess, is a cool attack for a single colorless energy. You draw 2 cards and then you put 1 card from your hand on the bottom of your deck. Why is this cool? Well, I guess it helps you set up the fossil Pokemon. So if you have a fossil Pokemon on your hand, something that's restored like an Ammonite or an Aerodactyl, something like that, you put it on the bottom, and then the next turn you can play your trainer card, your fossil card, and you're sure that to hit that Pokemon. What do I think about Toad with Servine? Okay, we'll get there in a second. Servine is coming, not that far away because it's a grass type. So right now, yeah, I think Shuckle might be a decent enabler for those strategies, but I actually think there's a better way to get the fossil Pokemon out. We'll get to that when we talk about Omastar. But I actually enjoy this type of cards. I really like when, all the sets have to have garbage cards, right? So as long as they make the garbage cards interesting at least, or at least like cool effects for us deck builders to build around, I think it's awesome. I remember that set where they had the Politoed and Poliwrath and whatever that actually made the deck together, which wasn't very good. They were garbage cards, but they were very easy to find. And that was awesome for me, I guess, because I could always play that deck for fun, try to build a deck without energy and stuff like that. So I really like those types of cards, and I think this set has a lot of them. So the new Japanese set hasn't got garbage cards. Yeah, I know which set you're talking about, but I don't think we're going to get it, and that's another reason why I don't really like to do the Japanese set reviews, because we're not sure if we're going to get the cards or not. So I'd rather just focus on what we have in front of us right now. And I think Pokemon players, because we have the Japanese sets come out so early before the English sets, I think we leave too much in the future. And this expansion is going to be legal pretty much like 1 month from now, so we still have 1 month left to play with the previous meta, or without even this set in the format. So I think people just think way too ahead of time. So yeah, okay, that's Shuckle for you guys. I think I'm going to ignore these guys. I know there's something with Wormadams and Mothim and whatnot, but I think it's pretty much garbage. So I just want to focus on what's good, or what's at least what are the better cards. Yeah, we got the Servine in here. I really like Servine, and I think, and I know another person that really likes it, which is Joe from Omnipoke. I like the fact that this is a grass Pokemon, and I actually think the ability is quite decent, because you play this from your hand and you flip a coin, and if heads, your opponent is paralyzed, which is quite decent for an ability. I don't know if you'd play this guy without the Stage 2 Serperior, I still don't know, but if you're playing Scoop Ups or Devolution Sprays in your deck, I think it might be worth it to play like a one of this, like a 1/1 line or something like that. I don't know. It does have a very interesting ability, that's for sure. And of course Serperior, because there's a lot of grass weak Pokemon, I guess. There's Zygarde EX, there's of course Toad, as Gothero is saying right here. Yeah, new grass type is overpowered because of metagame. Yeah, I guess. But I'm actually not quite sure that Toad decks are going to be sticking around for that much longer, and I don't think Serperior is going to be the nail in the coffin, you know? It's obviously something that helps, but I don't think it's the card that they're most worried about. I think the new Marowak will get there. Is going to be the biggest thing against Toad decks right now. But yeah, if the meta has a lot of grass weak Pokemon, which I guess a lot of the water types like Greninja are, Serperior is definitely a strong heavy hitter. So for colorless energy you deal 40 damage, and then the next turn this deals 60 more damage, so it's 140 over 2 turns. If you have a Muscle Band, of course, that's 180 on a non-grass weak Pokemon. If they are weak to grass, I guess that you deal 80 or 120 on the first turn if you have a Muscle Band, and then the next turn you just destroy them. So maybe that's his play. But yeah, the second attack is much better, but it does cost the grass energy, which only decks with grass energy obviously can use. So it's 80 damage. If you have a Muscle Band in there, it's a 1-hit KO on a Toad. And you can't use Slash Down during your next turn, but it doesn't really matter too much if you already killed their Pokemon. But yeah, it's a Stage 2, so I don't know. It is some trouble getting this guy into play if you're under item lock, and if you're not under item lock, I don't know how worried you are about Toad. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, definitely interesting. These guys. Elias Nickland, hi. How's it going? So Gothero says, last weekend in the city in Madrid, I won senior with grass. Oh, congratulations for the win. Valplum Vespiquen, yeah, that's pretty cool. And the master winner also played grass stepped out. Yeah, I know the guy. He also played in Porto the weekend before. We hanged around for a little bit. Pretty cool Spanish players. I have I've been making a lot of friends with the Spanish players that have come to Portugal to play. There's a lot of people that I really like. Well, for example, I love the Gaia Storm guys, Elena and Jonathan. But they have never come to Portugal. I went to Madrid to play in the Metro City, whatever the tournament that they do every year. And I met them there, and they are awesome people. I also met Blessur and Net, they are two Pokemon streamers, but they stream about the video game. They also sometimes have videos on the card game. Yeah, Metro Pokemon Day, that's it. And I met them there. They are also super awesome guys, and they have like a bazillion subscribers on YouTube. So I guess they are the real deal. While I'm like this low life YouTuber. So yeah, it was quite fun. But yeah, I'm making a lot of friends with the Spanish players that are coming over to play, like Pedro Torres. He's an awesome dude from Sevilla, and of course the Madrid guys. So yeah, Blessur has like 300,000 subscribers, something like that. But he's a pretty chill guy. We actually had lunch together, and it was pretty awesome. Talking to him. I didn't know he was a YouTuber when I met him. I only knew like after we, by the time I was leaving, because people were asking for his autograph, and I was like, what is happening here? So I didn't really know him. So let's move on. We have a Moltres in here, which is a fire type legendary Pokemon, but unfortunately I think you're better off just playing Entei. Flare Birth for the same amount of energy that Entei takes for its second attack. This guy does 120 damage essentially, but you have to deal 20 damage to yourself, or just the 80 damage. I don't think this is great. I think you should just stick with Entei anyways. So yeah, there's that. And we have Break Pokemon in here. It's a Delphox Break, so I guess we have to talk about this. So Delphox Break is a stage 3, like Greninja Break. Greninja Break is a very, very good deck in the format, and probably one of the cheapest decks right now, because it doesn't play any Shaymin, most lists at least. It doesn't even need to play Octillery, as I showed you guys in my last video. And the reason I think it works while being a stage 3 is that, well, for one, there is some very good support for water type Pokemon, like the Dive Balls and the Rough Seas. Which makes it quite nice. And the other thing is the power level is way up there, and you can build your deck just with the Greninja line and pretty much nothing else, and it works. So it's a very, very heavy Pokemon line, but you can actually build it into a deck. And I think the question for me is whether Delphox can be built into its own deck alone with nothing else, because it will be a very, very thick line if you want to build the Delphox Break deck. Maybe we don't even need the break, but I think it's going. If you build a deck, I think the break is very important, if nothing else, because of the 180 HP. You're saying that if you use Assault Vest in Moltres with this, you get damage yourself. I don't know. I'd have to read Assault Vest. I don't know the exact text by heart, but I'd have to look into that. Maybe it cuts the damage. I don't know. Without Frogadier, Greninja is crap. I don't know about that. I'm not really sure about that, if that is true. I mean, it definitely helps a lot, but I think you could still build a deck without that. You just throw stuff at the opponent's face while you build your Greninja, and once your build, it's built, you're set. I don't know. Maybe it's more important that I'm giving it credit for. I don't know. I mean, it's definitely important the fact that you build the Frogadier on the active, and you get other guys on the bench. So if the opponent knocks out your active Pokemon, you still have the other guys on the bench, right? But I think you can kind of emulate that with by throwing something big in front and then evolving 2 other guys on the bench, stuff like that, you know? So I think actually the power from the Greninja deck is once you build essentially 2 Greninja breaks, they are in huge trouble because you start taking basically essentially 1-hit KOs on EXs every single turn. You start knocking them out left and right, and there's really nothing they can do about it. I mean, most of the stuff that people use against EXs is not great against Greninja break, and then if you actually happen to kill one of the breaks, they basically get to build them back, and you only take 1 prize. So, Liga Pokemon Coimbra, who are you? Mimoso? Is that you? Yes, you do. Assault Vest says any damage into this Pokemon discards attached by attacks from your opponent's Pokemon. Oh, so it's only from opponent's Pokemon. Yeah, exactly. You kind of have to read the cards every single time. I don't know, man. I don't know about the Frogadier, to be honest. I don't know. Yeah, well, I do know it's definitely 100% awesome, but I don't know if you couldn't build a deck anyways. From playing with it a lot, it's awesome because essentially you know what it reminds me of? The Phantom that evolves with an attack, you know, because that's all you need to do with the Trevenant deck. You only need to evolve, and you don't mind using your attack to evolve that turn if you're getting a Trevenant into play. And with Frogadier, it's kind of like that, but I don't think it's 100% needed. Sometimes I've had a lot of games with Greninja where I don't use the Frogadier's attack, and I'm still well off. So yeah. You can still, I mean, you have dive balls, you have all of that. So, but let's get back to our Fates Collide set review. Yeah, Delphox Break, it might work if it's something like Greninja where you just build your own guy. This one, on the other hand, I don't think you need to have 2 into play. I think if you just get to 1 Delphox Break, it might be strong because it's 180 HP. The ability is quite nice because you search your deck for a Fire Energy and attach one of your Pokemon. So you can choose where you attach it to. You can just build another guy on your bench while you attack with Delphox. Flickering Flame does 40 damage. Your opponent's Pokemon is now asleep, so that's fine. But I think Psycho Storm is where it's at. I mean, 20 damage for each energy attached to your guys and their guys. So not only are you dealing damage for your own acceleration, but you're also dealing damage by each energy that the opponent has. So this is doesn't take much for this to be bonkers. So I really like it. And as I said, it's a fire type, so maybe we can use Blacksmith, and there's also a decent stadium in Scorched Earth. So I don't know, maybe there's something around this. If I had to guess, I'd say this is going to be bad because it's a stage 3, and generally those are really, really bad. But I don't know, Greninja works, so maybe there's some way that we can make this work as well. Plus this destroys Sceptile decks, so maybe if Sceptile becomes a huge player, I don't know. But yeah, then again, also does Entei, right? I mean, I'd rather just play Entei against Sceptile decks if it came down to that, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, exactly. Frogadier is really nice because it makes sure that if they take a knockout on your active, you also have the other guys around, you know? So that even a Lysander doesn't break your evolution chain, so to speak, but if you didn't have that Frogadier attack, I think I think you could still build the deck a little bit differently. Just trying, yeah, you'd be a little bit more constrained, but I think you could still do it. I don't know. Let me see what you guys are saying. If this one, if Delphox would have evolution, acceleration, or a means to swarm Fennekin all by itself without his support, it would be much better. Yeah, exactly. Definitely true. Definitely right. But I think there's a lot of upside because the damage is bonkers, right? It's not as good as Greninja though, because it doesn't matter if you're dealing 1000 damage if you cannot spread the damage around like you can with the Frogadier, and I think that's a big part. Oh, sorry, with the Greninja, and I think that's a big part of what makes that deck. But okay, let's move on. I'm already wasting a lot of time talking about these cards, and we start looking at some fossils here. We got Ammonite, and I think most of the times, if you're playing the fossil deck, you won't be playing Ammonite at all, because Omastar is a water type, and I think it's way better and way easier to get this guy into play with an Archie's Ace in a Hole. So we can bring this guy immediately into play, and it has a nice ability that says that once during your turn, you may search your deck for a restored Pokemon and put it into your bench. So no questions, just get a restored Pokemon. And there are some restored basics that are nice, like the Aerodactyl actually has a nice rate for the amount of damage he does with the energy it asks for. We get to that in a second. But if there is such a deck, I think you can play like a single Ammonite in there just so that you can Archie's for Omastar and then get the Ammonite into play so that you can play in the second Omastar without having to Archie's again. I think that might be cool. But yeah, as a one-off, I think it might work, the little Ammonite, but no more than that. Of course, another great reason to play this deck is Omastar Break, because if you evolve Omastar into Omastar Break, the ability is insane. It says, once during your turn, you may choose one of your opponent's benched Pokemon EX and switch it with his or her active Pokemon. So it's no questions, you just capture their Pokemon. It's like old school Gust of Wind, or a catcher, because before you flip the coin, you just get their guy out, whichever you like, and I think that's super nice. And it also combines really nice with Aerodactyl. We'll get to that in a second. So yeah, if you're playing the Fossil deck, I think 100% you're going to be playing Omastar Break. Actually, I think it's one of the biggest incentives to play that deck, but you kind of have to build it with Archies, I think. I'm going to try to build both the deck both ways, with Archies and with Shuckles and the trainers, but I'm not so sure about that. Let's see what you guys are saying over here. Omastar Break, you like it? Yeah, I think it's fine, definitely. Yeah, Omastar does not have a decent attack, that is true, but I don't really know if you want to be attacking with this guy. I don't know. Vespiquen attacks with Omastar Break. Yeah, might work. I mean, you're playing Battle Compressors, right? So maybe the deck also likes to have... Actually, yeah, maybe you don't even need the Aerodactyl. But yeah, I would still play the Aerodactyls, I think, in that deck. Or maybe one. I don't know. I think the Aerodactyl's attack is quite nice. The fact that it removes special energy from your opponent's Pokemon, that can be quite annoying. But let's move on. We have the first EX in here. It's Glacian EX. Second Bite is it's like Wobbuffet's attack, right? 20 damage plus 10 for each damage counter on the opponent's active Pokemon. I mean, it's a decent attack. We've seen it in Wobbuffet, but this guy is a water type, so we don't get to use Dimension Valley to cut the attack's cost, which is a little bit of a shame, but it's still a useful attack. And then we have Crystal Ray, which I guess is the main thing here. 70 damage for a water and a double colorless. During your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by evolve Pokemon. Huh. It's kind of like a reverse Jolteon EX, but this guy actually takes 2 energy to retreat, so it's way worse than Jolteon just right there. And then Jolteon's attack is way better. I mean, preventing damage from basic Pokemon, because there's so many basic Pokemon that are good right now. I mean, this guy, what does this guy protect you from? Greninja, I guess, but only from... Oh, it's actually all damage from evolved Pokemon, so Greninja can't even use the ability, right? If you only have Glacian EX out and you attack, they cannot use their abilities to deal damage to this Glacian EX. So I guess that's decent, if this translation is right, I guess. Because it's not from attacks, it's from all damage, right? Yeah, that seems actually quite decent. I don't know, I still don't know if you would pair it with Jolteon in a deck. Maybe as a one-off in some deck that has access to some acceleration of energy to just fix the Greninja matchup. I don't know. It's from attacks, Gothero, that's what you're saying? I'm not reading that here. During your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by evolve Pokemon. It doesn't say from attacks. I don't know if the translation is wrong, but... yeah, maybe it is. I don't know. Oh, it's placing damage, not dealing damage. Yeah, you might be right. Yeah, you might be right. So it doesn't... I guess the consensus is that it doesn't protect you from Greninja. So I don't think it's that good. Maybe it could be good against Mega Pokemon, but I don't think there's many Mega Pokemon that are good right now. And I don't think it's a 70 damage per turn Pokemon, or 90 if you have a Muscle Band that's going to deal with that. And you know what's the problem with having cards that are good against Mega decks? Is that usually the basic is also decent, and usually they deal more than 70 damage. So if you're playing against Sceptile, for example, their the non-mega EX, the basic EX, is also quite nice at dealing more damage than this guy actually does. So they don't really need to evolve at all. And if you have this guy in the active position, you have to discard energy to retreat, or at least have a floatstone in there. And so it's not free like Jolteon is, so you can't change like interchangeably. And if you have two guys down, you can always Lysander them out. Yeah, there's a lot of problems with this guy. I'm not a fan. So let's move on. We have Water Kyurem in here. Burning Icicle, 40 damage. If this Pokemon has any fire energy attached to it, choose 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon and do 20 damage to each of them. I'm assuming that if you're playing this guy, you're going to 100% all the time have the fire energy in there. Well, of course not 100% of the times, but most of the times you can build your deck to do that quite easily. So it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Plasma Kyurem, right? But the thing was that the Plasma Kyurem had a lot of Plasma support, so you had Colress Machine to accelerate energy. You have yeah, we can play Rainbow Energy with this guy, right? Yeah, Fire Energy, any Fire Energy, so it doesn't have to be basic. So yeah, we can play a Rainbow Energy with this guy also. Not Prism, because that's not on the format anymore. But the Plasma Kyurem also had the Deoxys EX, so it actually dealt a lot more damage than this guy does, I think. But yeah, sniping 2 Pokemon, maybe this finds a home somewhere. Another thing that the other Kyurem did pretty well was take knockouts with the second attack. This does 130, but you can always increase it by, I don't know, 20 with a Muscle Band, maybe 20 with the Giovanni, but that's not very reliable, and the other guy could just use Deoxys and just take knockouts out of nowhere. If you only had 1 energy, you can just play a second one and Colress Machine, and then suddenly you're dealing 170 damage out of nowhere. So I don't think it's comparable. I think this White Kyurem is way worse than the Plasma Kyurem used to be. But maybe it finds a place somewhere. Maybe it's a niche card in some decks. Let's see what you guys are saying. Dark Espion says, player Glacian EX and Jolteon EX with Malamar EX and Ninazernius XNY9 deck with Upa EX to fill the bench. Jesus Christ, that seems so much work, man. It would be great if it worked, but it seems like it's a lot of stuff. Especially if you're considering the format that we're in right now, where it's just Night March. It's so effective. You always have to, when you're evaluating cards, maybe I'll do a video about it someday. When you're evaluating cards, I think the thing that you keep in mind is that too much work. So if the effect is great, but it's just too much work to pull off, or at least more work than what the other decks are doing, the upside might not be that great at all. So if the other decks are just so effective at what they do, dealing damage and whatnot, if you're building your deck to be reactive to that and you're not as effective as they are, they're going to win a lot of times. So even against Night March, if you're playing Jolteon, they can always target whistle something out and Lysander it and kill it every single turn, so it sucks. Oops. Best Pokemon could go around, let's say as your last Pokemon. You have a lot of water types. Delphox is kind of out of the meta. Yeah, that's also true. Delphox gets raped by water type Pokemon, which is kind of lame. Let's move on. We have a Barbaracle in here, which has a very interesting ability, but it's not as interesting as I first thought it was, because it says you can use this ability if you have a Stadium card in play. As long as his Pokemon is in play, your opponent can't attach any special energy cards from his or her hand. This seems quite nice at first, because basically means that your opponent would have to X-Mana Q every time they wanted to place an energy, and that's just not what you want to be doing with your energy. You want to make sure that you play an energy every single turn, and sometimes you have to play a supporter to draw into them and all that, so it seems like this could be a very good card. But then people are saying that you can only use this ability if the Stadium card in play is yours. That's what this means, if you have a Stadium card in play. And if that is true, I think this is way worse, like unplayable worse. Because it's just too easy to just drop a Stadium and play your energy. I think if Barbaracle actually became a thing, it would just be too easy for people to start playing 4 Stadiums instead of 2 or 3. So it's just a minor adjustment to the deck building process, and you go around this guy. So I don't think it's great. I think it's just building a stage 1 and having it in your deck for the ability to not matter anytime. So yeah, I thought of that too, like using Barbarical as a Night March counter, but oh yeah, because you play your but you have to make sure that you put your Stadium down 100% of the time, or else it's just 2 cards that you have at least that you have in your deck that are rubbish, that do basically nothing for the rest of the game, right? Unless you start playing Delinquent, and that's an extra card that you have to play, and you have to play Delinquent before you put your own Stadium down. That seems like a recipe for trouble. I wouldn't. And they also have X-Maniac, so maybe they can just X-Maniac in a single turn, which is everything they need. I don't know. It's doesn't seem like it's going to work, honestly. Could be attacking Giratina control. Why, man? Giratina does what this guy does a lot better, I think. If you're already attacking with Giratina, if you're going through the trouble of playing Dragon Energy and Double Colorless Energy on Giratina, you're already locking your opponent out of special energy cards. You don't need another thing in there to do basically the same thing that Giratina already does, right? It's just extra work for the same effect that you already have. So I don't think that's going to be good. Marowak is a thing now. Yeah, let's wait until we get to Marowak. I don't want to spoil anything. Rotom for a couple of Colorless Energy. Plasmagic. It seems like a cool thing. So it moves 2 damage counters from each of your Pokemon with damage counters on them to your opponent's active Pokemon. So this could be good if we actually find a way to build our bench with a lot of damage counters. So it kind of feels like a sweet brewing card. Not going to be a very good card in competitive play, of course, but as I said, I like that the garbage cards are fun and something that you can build your cool decks around, so that you can, I don't know, play a match or 2 on Pokemon Trading Card Game Online sometimes, and then I can make videos to post on the channel that I know you guys like, fun videos with very bad cards, and I have quite a fun time playing them. And this is one of them. I'm definitely going to try to build a deck around Rotom. I don't know if there's enough support for it, but I'm going to try anyways. Oh, Marowak stops Giratina. Yeah. But if Marowak is a thing and it's stopping Giratina, I don't know if you want to be playing Giratina at all. So I don't know. I still don't think you play Giratina in the same deck as Barbarical. Yeah, Team Magma Stadium with Rotom, because you play your Pokemon and they take damage. That seems cool. I'd love to play it with some other kind of way to deal damage to our own Pokemon. And the reason for that is, I think the best case scenario, and that's always how I try to build my fun decks, is to just go bonkers. And I think the best scenario would be to have 8 Pokemon in play with Skyfield. So that we can deal 8 times 2, it's 160 damage to the opponent's Pokemon, which still wouldn't be a knockout on an EX, so it doesn't seem great. Dugtrio Rotom, now we're talking, exactly. Using Dugtrio to deal damage, spread the damage around, and then use Rotom to put some damage counters on the opponent's Pokemon. Maybe that can work, I don't know, we'll try it. It's definitely I think the easiest way to put damage on your own Pokemon. Because it's only a 1 energy attack, and it's actually a very decent attack at that. So yeah, I don't know. Let's go into Alakazam EX. This guy is, I guess, one of the namesake cards of the set. It's all about Alakazam right now, and it does seem very decent. I mean, let's start by reading the cards, I guess. Spoon Bending, the ability, which is the focus point of, I guess, any Alakazam deck. When this Pokemon evolves into Mega Alakazam EX, you may place 2 damage counters on your opponent's active Pokemon and 3 damage counters on one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. Suppression, place 3 damage counters in each of your opponent's Pokemon that has any energy attached to it, so you can play this with Dimension Valley maybe and just attack for a single energy. But I don't think this attack is any good. I think it only does 30 to their active most of the times. There's some decks that play energy on the bench, but actually not a lot of them. And you don't really mind having 3 damage counters. I don't know. It doesn't seem like a great attack. I think what you really want to be doing is attacking with Mega Alakazam that says, for the same amount of energy, 10 damage, and 30 more damage for each damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon. So that's actually a lot more damage, greater damage output, especially combined with Spoon Bending. So this is kind of like Wobbuffet on steroids. So you deal some damage, spread some damage around with the Spoon Bending ability, and then you start dealing huge amounts of damage with Mega Alakazam EX. That seems super nice. I've seen people talking about playing this with bats. I don't think that's the way to go. Actually, Omnipoke has posted a video about the deck, and it's so close to what I feel like the deck should be that I urge you guys to go there and check it out for yourselves. Definitely, if I'm building the Mega Alakazam deck, that's the first thing that I'm going to try, is to play this deck with Skyfield instead of Dimension Valley, and you actually don't mind having 2 energy on your guys. But I think what the most important thing for this deck is having the bench space to play your Shaymin, your Hoopas, and your Alakazams, because you want to have 4 of these guys out, right? You want to be able to use Mega Alakazam every single turn and play Scoops and play Evolution Sprays and bring these guys back to your hand and put them down again and spread some more damage around that you can then make use of with Mega Alakazam EX and do huge amounts of damage. Is this going to be a deck in the meta? I don't know. Let's think about that. The damage output is great, even against EX decks and even against normal decks. But the thing about this deck, obviously, is the weakness against Psychic, and that means that this guy is prey to Pumpkaboo. And yeah, I don't think that spells any good for any deck. The fact that it does spread some damage counters might be nice if we can do that quickly. But we have to keep in mind that they play Fighting Fury Belt now, and they might play X-Maniac also, and they take huge knockouts on our guys. And I think Night March actually can protect their guys fairly easily. If they don't right now, because of Puzzle of Time, they can just have Shaymin out or something like that and play a Floatstone in the Shaymin and just retreat. They don't even play the Pumpkaboo out, you know. They just wait for you to kill their attacker, and then they promote a Shaymin. They put another Pumpkaboo down and retreat into it and just play the energy and knock you out. And I think that's going to happen like every single turn. So I don't know. I don't think this is going to be great while Night March is good. And I think Night March only gets better with this set. So yeah, I think we're kind of I'm kind of on the fence with a Mega Alakazam deck, competitively speaking. But yeah, it does have potential once the rotation happens, maybe. But then again, wouldn't you rather be playing Mega Mewtwo? I don't know. I guess we'll have to test it out for ourselves. Let's see what you guys are saying. Yeah, I think I like Omnipoke's deck a lot. I I agree with that. Yeah, that's the problem. With bats, it's super clunky. It's just too many cards. I've actually seen people play back in the day Manectric bats, and they have Mega Manectric in there, and it was a mess of a deck. Just the opposite of what you want to be doing, which is spread damage quickly. And here, I don't know, what does a bat do that Alakazam and Mega Alakazam aren't doing anyways, right? So you're spending the bench space, and this guy forces you to spread the damage around. So you have to put 2 damage counters on the active and 3 on the bench. And with the bats you can actually choose. But it takes 3 bats, so the Zubat, Golbat, and Crobat, over a course of 3 turns to do the same thing this guy takes in just a single turn. So you just evolve, and you do the 50 damage, which you do have to spread, but it's the same amount of damage that you would have done with so many slots dedicated to bats. So it does feel like it's just too much for very little gain, so I'd rather just focus on these 2 guys. If you have space left in your deck, I think I'd just play the Evolution Spray or something to try to deal some more damage with these guys. I don't know. Skyfields with Dimension Valley. I'm not a fan of that, actually. I'm not a huge fan of playing 2 types of stadiums unless you know exactly what you get out of them. And by that I mean you don't need both stadiums in a single match. So if you're playing a deck like, for example, Toad decks sometimes do, and they play 2 stadiums, I do understand that, because they need 1 stadium for certain matchups and another stadium for other matchups. So there's never a game where they're going to be, oh, I need both stadiums at different times, you know? And what you're suggesting kind of means that on the same game, you have to play Skyfield sometimes, and other times you want to play Dimension Valley, and what's going to happen is you get them at the wrong time, and it's super awkward, and just makes the deck not work at all. compared to what the other decks are doing, once again, which is just being more effective than you are. So I guess a big part of deck building for me, at least competitively, is focus, and I think that just makes the deck awkward because the cards have to come out in a certain I'm missing the word, in a certain sequence, and that's way worse than getting them at any time and just putting them down. You could take the Hoopa out and use Level Ball. Yeah, you can, but you're still going to be playing Mega Pokemon in your deck anyway, so you do want the Hoopa there. You don't want to cut Hoopa. It's not like it's a disadvantage to play it, because if it was, you wouldn't play it, right? Mask Salesman, hello, how's it going, man? Let's move on. We have an interesting whizzing in here, because for Double Colorless Energy, you do basically the same thing that the new supporter Team Rocket's handiwork does, which is you flip the coins, and for each heads you discard the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck. Is this good? I don't think it is, but it's like the best mill rate that we have right now. So the expected value is 2 cards, which is the same as you get for basically Undoom and Bunnelby, but this guy can sometimes discard 4, which I think is cool. I don't know. It's still a stage 1, so I don't think this is going to be good. But I don't know. It's, I think, worth mentioning. I'm actually glad that the milling strategies aren't that great, because if they were, it would be very hard to fight against that without having very effective ways to shuffle cards back into the deck, because, as you know, Trump card is banned, and rightfully so. So, Mew. Okay, we have Mew. People are going nuts about this card because they say this is wonderful in Night March, and I see where they're coming from, but I'm still skeptical. And okay, let's first analyze the card. This Pokemon can use the attacks of each of your basic Pokemon in play. So this has 2 differences from the Mew EX that we had from I don't know what the set it came originally from, but I know it was reprinted in Legendary Treasures. That Mew could use attacks from your opponent's Pokemon, which this guy can't, and it could use attacks from any Pokemon, so it didn't need to be basic Pokemon. So we can't really, unfortunately, build the Shedinja deck with this guy in play, or even the Mega Manectric Turbo deck that I used to play also with Mew EX with this guy, unfortunately. But what we can do is put it in Night March, like the other Mew used to, like we used to do with the other Mew. But I don't think this does exactly the same that the other Mew did, because the other guy had 120 HP. While it gave out 2 prizes, it did a better job at protecting your energy, because most of the times the opponents weren't as quick as you were at dealing damage, so they couldn't do 120 on the first turn, and you could knock them out. So you were already up on the prize exchange. They weren't taking their prize, and you didn't need to spend the other turn looking for energy again, because most of the times the Mew EX would survive, and most of the decks didn't play energy removal. So I guess that's what the other Mew was doing in the deck. Right now, this guy only does one thing, which is it helps you protect your Night Marchers, so that you can discard more Night Marchers, or that's at least what people are arguing, and I don't really think we need this card that bad. I've played Night March a lot, and I think what the deck struggles against is item locks. It doesn't have a huge problem with their Night Marches getting knocked out, to be honest. With Puzzle of Time in the format, I guess you just really don't care. And even before the puzzle, we had the Buddy Rescue and all that, which kind of helped. But with Puzzle of Time, it's just, you can just play 2 Puzzles of Time, get the Night Marcher and the energy, play them down, retreat from your Shaman, and just take a knockout anyways. So I don't think Mew is going to be that bonkers this time around. And plus, I'm struggling to see what I'm going to cut from the deck to stick Mew in, because there's really nothing else that I'd rather cut to have Mew in there. Because it doesn't... The thing is, my build of Night March at least plays a lot of one-offs that fix some matchups for you, or make it really hard for your opponent. And none of those cards can be replaced by adding Mew in the deck. So if you tell me, okay, you can just cut the hammers for Mew, that's not really true, because Mew isn't going to fix what the hammers fix, which is the Giratina match. So I don't know. This doesn't seem like it's going to be that great in Night March. It is a cool card to have around. There's a lot of stuff that we can do with Mew, which I think is super fun. But yeah, I don't think this is that great of a card, to be honest. In Night March, it's just that I'm struggling to see what we can cut to fit Mew in there. But feel free to prove me wrong, guys, at any time. This format is so focused in consistency, and Night March needs that. Dude, Night March is the most consistent deck right now. If there's anything that needs consistency, it's not Night March. Believe me when I tell you that. You just really don't. I don't know. I'm struggling to see what this brings to the deck. I mean, you stick a Pumpkaboo in there with a Fighting Fury belt, and they're already having trouble knocking you out in a single hit. It's not Mew that's going to make a difference, honestly. It's like it's a Night Marcher that doesn't bring extra value by having it in the discard pile. I can see that it helps by not having your deck under so much pressure to play the time puzzles and all that, but I don't think this is the card that fixes that for you. I think Marowak does that because it always makes sure that you are not under item lock against Toad decks, and I don't really know what to cut to bring this guy in. I think you're going to end up cutting stuff that's more important than having the Mew around. That's just my take. But yeah, feel free to prove me wrong. Yeah, I agree. I do think Mew is overhyped. I don't think this is the thing that's going to put Night March. To be honest, I don't think I will even play Mew in my Night March build. 100% I will play Marowak because it does bring something to the deck that the deck desperately needs, which is protection from item lock, which is item lock from Seismitoad. It doesn't protect you from Vileplume or from Trevenant, but against Vileplume I don't think you have to worry too much right now. You have to worry as much as any other deck, I guess, and against Trevenant you're screwed either way, so it doesn't matter. You're going to lose that match, but against Toad it just makes it way better. So yeah, I do think Marowak is going to be great. We'll get to that in a second. Once again, keep talking about Marowak. Should have just gone to Marowak straight away and get it out of the way. We have Grumpig in here. People have been talking about this as a counter to Night March. Head walking, choose a basic Pokemon in your opponent's discard pile, put it into their bench, and place 3 damage counters on it. Yeah, this takes a prize immediately if your opponent is playing Joltix. But I don't know. It's a stage 1. You have to build it to do that. You take 1 prize and they knock out your Grumpig, and then what? What are you doing? What are you accomplishing out of that? I think this is a very lame way to deal with Night March, to be honest. I think if this is your Night March counter, you're doing it wrong. That's what I feel like. Oh yeah, and there's also that Mask Salesman. Sorry, it is, but the people have a point. I play 1, 2 Max. Honestly, that's X-Men is the fact that you cannot use Mew and X-Maniac on the same turn is also a very awkward thing going for Mew, because with Night March a lot of times and against a lot of decks you want to be playing up to a certain point. You just want to go X-Maniac every single turn, and you can't be attacking with Mew while you play X-Maniac. So that's another awkward reason why Mew is not going to be bonkers in that deck, in my opinion at least. Okay, moving on from Grumpig, we have Solosis, Duosion, and Reuniclus. And once again, we have garbage cards that are quite fun to build around. If you have one of these guys and you attack with it, you can cut the attack cost with Dimension Valley. It does 10 damage. If there's a Solosis on your bench, it does 40, which is decent, interesting. And then you have Duosion, 10 damage. If there's a Solosis, 30 more damage. If there's a Duosion on your bench, 60 more damage, so that's 100 damage. And you have Reuniclus, which does 10 damage plus 30 for a Solosis on the bench, 60 for a Duosion, and 90 more if you have the Reuniclus. And as the Pokebeach staff has done. They wrote here, yes, they stack 190 damage. So that's definitely a deck I'm going to try to build with the garbage cards that are left from the pre-release and all that. But it's not going to be great, obviously. It's not only weak to Night March, but it's a stage 2 with 90 HP that you have to attack with. But it's definitely, it seems like a fun deck. I do want to knock out stuff with Reuniclus, so I'm going to try to do that, of course. Okay, finally we get to Marowak. You know the coolest thing about Marowak? It doesn't have any Cubones in the set, so in a pre-release, if you open this guy, you're not going to be playing with it. And I think that's that just makes me laugh a little bit, because this comes from a promo set in Japan, and here it's part of the normal set, so they decided to print it with no Cubone. The focus obviously here is Bodyguard, the ability. It says that you and your hand are not affected by effects of your opponent's Pokemon's attacks. Remove any existing effects on you or your hand, or end your hand. So it basically protects you against item lock, special energy lock, like from Giratina and stuff like that. So they you become immune to that. That means that if your opponent wants to item lock you, they have to play like an X-Maniac on the same turn, or at least start playing Trubbish on the deck. I'm not saying that the Toad decks are going to be totally destroyed by this card, because Toad always finds a way. There's something that we have learned right now, is that by this point, is that Toad decks have always found a way to come back. But I do think it's going to be very good, especially in decks like Night March that put a lot of pressure on the opponent, and then they play this guy and they are out of item lock. And they can just play their puzzles of time and all that, and get those energy back, and just have another breath, and just destroy the Toads that you throw at them. So yeah, I think Marowak is definitely going to be seen playing in Night March decks. I still don't know if you're going to be playing the Cubone, or if you're going to evolve into it. If you're going to put it into play with Max's Hidden Ball Trick. I think it's easier with Cubone in a vacuum, because you have to go through less hoops, because you don't have to play your hand a certain way, so you can just, I don't know, you can just keep things in your hand. You don't need to discard them all. Like sometimes you want to keep the special energies around. You don't really want to discard them with an Ultra Ball if you have extras. So I think it's better to have the Cubones out and play this guy. And that's exactly the first thing that I'm going to try in Night March right now, is this guy. And this actually, you don't really mind changing your deck a little bit, because I've been playing Xerosic and Enhanced Hammer in the deck, because they help a lot against Giratina. But I actually think you can cut, at least the Enhanced Hammer you can cut. Xerosic seems fine against Trubbish still, because it also helps keeping the Marowak alive, or the ability working. But yeah, at least the Enhanced Hammer I think is a card that we can cut. I still don't know if you're playing a 2-2 line of this guy, or a 1-1 line is enough, but I'm definitely going to try it out and test it and see how we go. But it's definitely something that the deck needs, 100%. Yeah. What do you guys think about this Marowak? Once Cubone rotates, Night March may still whiff if it doesn't go first against Trev, maybe. Night March doesn't... okay, so first things first. This Marowak doesn't protect you against Trevenant. I think you're assuming it does. And it only protects you by effects of your opponent's attacks. So Trevenant still item locks you. So it's still another loss pretty much against Trevenant, Night March, right? And Vileplume, of course. I'm not saying it's a... sorry, I need to reformulate. I don't mean to say it's an auto loss against Vileplume. I meant to say that Vileplume's item lock still works against you. But I mean to say that it's not a loss against Trevenant, because that thing is going to be still very hard to beat. Not only because of the item lock, but also because of the things it does afterwards, which is spreading damage around, which is super hard for Night March to deal with such low HP Pokemon. Okay, no problem. But the other thing that I was going to say was Cubone. We've got a Cubone like in Breakthrough, something like that. So I don't think Cubone is going to rotate that soon. Actually, I think Cubone is going to rotate at the same time that the Marowak is. So I don't know. This guy's attack We can even, yeah, now that I think of it, we can even play Marowak with Marowak Break, can't we? Like in a dedicated deck. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be good. But I've only been focusing on Night March, but actually a lot of decks can play this guy. If your deck has trouble against Toad, you can also play the Marowak in there, just for the ability. Even if you're not Night March. So yeah, people tend to say on the internet that Night March is the bad guy right now because everyone plays it and all that, but from the point of view of a Portuguese player, I think Toad is still the bad guy and everyone plays it. I don't really mind, I love Toad, but people play it so much here that I felt like a hero playing Night March in regionals. Oh well, moving on, we have some more fossil Pokemon in here, but I'm not going to spend time looking at them because they are garbage. And we got to Regirock, one of my favorite cards from the set. This is a deck on its own. It's such a strong Pokemon. The ability, Regipower. Each of your fighting Pokemon does 10 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon, excluding Regirock EX. So this is very similar to Deoxys EX, the Plasma Deoxys, which made your Plasma Pokemon deal 10 extra damage to your opponent's Pokemon, except for Deoxys itself. Regirock, there's so much fighting support that you can build this deck in so many ways. Maybe you play Zygarde VX with the tool that allows it to use the 200 attack. Maybe you just play with Lucario. Maybe you just forget about all that and play Hawluchas. Maybe you just play Landorus, the baby Landorus from fighting some Furious Fists, and you play Carbinks to accelerate energy, and you actually attack with Regirock sometimes. I don't know. I think there's so many ways that you can build this deck that I'd be surprised if it wasn't a contender. And plus, it has something that I think is really strong right now, which is it's both good against EX decks, because you not only have a Carbink with Safeguard, we'll get to that in a second, but you also have a very high damage output. So even stuff like Greninja might struggle against this deck because you don't really give them a lot of breathing room to build their Greninjas. You're just going to be taking knockouts every single turn with these guys. It's really easy to hit knockouts every single turn on small Pokemon like Greninja, like Frokis and Frogadiers, and even Greninjas. So I think it's going to be hard for them to deal with this type of deck. So I definitely see this deck being good. Of course, Night March is a thing, but this deck's damage output is also very, very high. And you actually can play two different types of Pokemon. So you can play the Lucario and Zygarde EX, which we'll see in a moment. And they have different weaknesses, and they both have 3 attacks each. Actually, Zygarde has 4 if you count the tool. But you really don't need a tool sometimes. You just need to attach energy every single turn and deal damage every single turn. So there's a million options. I don't know how the fighting deck will look. Maybe there's going to be more than one fighting deck. That wouldn't surprise me at all. But yeah, Regirock I think is the one of the most important cards in there, because you're going to play this guy every single time. I mean, it's just so much damage. The problem starts being the bench space, because you also want to play Shaymins and maybe Hoopas, depending on what the other attackers from the deck are. But yeah, Regirock I think is definitely a part of that, because it just does so much damage. Let's see what you guys are saying over here. Marowak Break could become a thing because N might let him make a comeback. Yeah, that's true. If you are playing Marowak in your deck anyways, if you have fighting energy in there, well, once again, it's another fighting type deck, another thing for fighting decks to have in mind. Your opponent takes a couple of prizes and then you N and start dealing damage with Marowak Break. That seems good because they go down in cards and just start taking huge amounts of damage from a non-EX Pokemon. That's also cutting the item locks. What do you think of a Jolteon Glaceon deck? I have already talked about Glaceon. I don't think it's great. Maybe it's some niche play, but I don't know. I think you have better things to do with your energy, like playing them on Regice. I don't know. The bench normally is filled with Shaymins. Yeah, that's the main problem, the main concern with the deck. But I think if your main concern is there's so many good things that we want to play, that's a very good concern to have, right? I mean, the problem with this deck is there's so many great cards that we want to be playing that we need a bigger bench. Maybe we just cut the fighting stadiums and start playing um, Skyfields instead. I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes. But I do think Regirock is going to see play almost 100%. Of course, I've been wrong in the past. I thought Rayquaza was going to be a thing, but yeah, I definitely think this card is really strong. Medicham Reggie, yeah, once again, it's there's a million fighting type decks that we can play before the rotation at least, because we are losing some cards, mainly Corina and the Fighting Stadium, but I think they are kind of replaceable. I mean, Corina is very effective in what it does, but so is N. So we're also getting, we can just play 4N for Sycamore in that deck, and I don't think we're going to lose that much. It does mean that we want to play Shaymin more after Corina gets rotated out in that deck, but at the same time it also means that we don't have Fighting Stadium, so we can just forget about it and play Skyfields anyway, maybe. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we can play with this guy. Definitely one of the more exciting cards, because it's a 1, 2, or even 3 decks on its own that want the sheer amount of damage this guy does every single turn. Okay, I'm moving past a lot of cards here, which I think are kind of garbage. I love Hawlucha. I love destroying Hawlucha. One of the Pokemon that I like the most. Never played a video game where Hawlucha was playable, but I have played a card game, I guess, and I really like Hawlucha because of that. Okay, we get to Carbink, which is another great component to any fighting, and not even fighting deck. So the first Carbink has Energy Keeper as an ability. As long as this Pokemon is in play, your basic Pokemon's basic energy can't be discarded by effects of your opponent's attacks, abilities, or trainers. What this means is that your basic energy on your basic Pokemon are immune to hammers. And it does put some restrictions. With that I mean it only works on basic Pokemon and basic energy, which is fine. I mean, it helps keep things fair, right? I definitely think that we needed this card. Actually, we needed this guy a long time ago, because this is another nail in Seismitoad's coffin, which I still don't think it's going to be. Maybe it's not going to be enough, but it's definitely going to help, because you can play this card in any deck, and it's just your basic energy are protected as long as they are on basic Pokemon from hammers, and it just makes it super awkward to play Seismitoad decks, because you have to play X-Maniac before you can remove the energy, and I don't think that really works. Once again, I think the way for Seismitoad decks right now is with Trubbish, and Trubbish does cut this guy's ability, but it's also very awkward that you kind of have to build a Trubbish, actually a Garbodor with a tool on it before you can start playing your hammers. So I don't know, I think the hammers are got a lot worse with this thing. One thing that this guy doesn't do is protect you against Slowking. So I also think that if Toadex are going to be around, maybe it's with Slowking and just forget about the hammers at all. Which is quite nice. I think I'd rather just have Slowking around than hammers, which are totally insane. And they're not even Pokemon, they're just a card that you play from your hand and just get tremendous upside. So yeah, Carbink, really nice. I think you play this as a one-off in a lot of decks. Even decks with other Carbinks, which if you're thinking about attacking, I think this Carbink is a lot better. Not because of its attack, but because of its ability. It's Safeguard, you guys know what that does. We already got this on Sigilyph and Suicune. Prevent all effects of attacks, including damage done to this Pokemon by Pokemon EX. That's awesome. Protects our guy. And you can also evolve into Carbine Break, as you guys know, and now we have an attack that we actually want to use, which for a single fighting energy, Diamond Gift 20 damage, attach 2 energy cards. It's any 2 energy, it doesn't have to be basic, so we can attach double colorless energy, or more importantly, strong energy, from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon. Bench fighting Pokemon, so you can only attach to fighting. In that regard, it's worse than Garchomp, but you're only playing fighting types in that deck anyway, so you don't really care. You just attach 2 energy anyways, which is a better rate. And this is like a stage 1, so it's really easy to put this guy into play. If you put it on a Safeguard Carbink, you're protected. What I don't like about these two guys is that I'm kind of feeling like Carbink has the same problem as Garchomp, in that it's really good against the EX decks, but it's very bad or awkward against the non-EX decks like Greninja. If you're playing like the Carbink Break dedicated deck, you have a hard time dealing a lot of damage to the Greninja decks, and they can just do all the damage that they want to you anyways. So that's why I think this is not going to be a deck on itself. I think you really need to play the big huge EX heavy hitters like the Regirocks and the Zygardes and the Lucarios and all that, just so that your damage output is high against those decks, and then maybe you can play some Carbinks in there to recharge energy. Another option to consider, once again, is the baby Landorus from Furious Fists. It does recharge energy at a lot worse rate, and it doesn't recharge the strong energy, but it is a basic, so it's also worth considering, I guess. And it does have a second attack that does 90 damage, so maybe you can also use that guy. I don't know. Let's see what you guys are saying. Carbink might be good with a Max Elixir strategy. I disagree. I'm not a fan of that. And the reason for that is, I think with Max Elixir you want to play a lot of energy. I've seen people play like 8, 9 energy. I think that's wrong. I like to play at least 12. If I can, 14 energy with Max Elixir, because I don't want to play my items and not hit. And I mean, you're basically playing 2 cards that do the same thing, which is accelerate energy into play. I'd rather just replace the Max Elixirs for Battle Compressors in that regard, so that you can Battle Compress some energy away and then use the attack and recharge them anyways. Let's see. I have to search your comments a little bit higher. Medicham Reggie would be cool, yeah. Medicham Reggie could maybe hit Night March, yeah, that is true, but you have to build your stage 1 and you have to play the Focus Sash on that deck 100%, because, and you have to kind of wait or hope that they don't play the Megaphones. Reggie is great to reach 1-8 KO number and even Max Elixir to an extent, yeah, that's true. Corrin is phasing out. Isn't strong energy out too, or is it reprinted? I didn't know. Yeah, as you'll see, Joseph, the strong energy is indeed being reprinted in this set. So that's not the issue. Is the 3 retreat cost on Regirock? It doesn't seem like a lot of an issue. I mean, there's Float Storms, there's AZ. We don't really need to drop cards on Regirock. People used to Lysander out Deoxys, and it was also awkward, but there were always ways around that. It is a disadvantage for sure, but I don't think it's something that breaks the deck in half. The problem with Medicham is 2 energy drops you have to do if you don't have Shrine of Memories. That is true. And I think Shrine of Memories is... I'm not a fan of that in that deck. But yeah, the 2 energy drops is very bad if you're facing something like Night March, because you have to really hope that they don't play their megaphones on your Focus Sashes, so they survive the attack. Remember, Max Elixir and Shrine is a cool text. I don't know. It seems too awkward, man. You can only Max Elixir before you evolve, because Max Elixir only works on basics. Shrine, I don't think it's a stadium you want to be playing. I think you want to be playing Fighting Stadium in that deck. But yeah, I agree that if you want to be doing that deck, I think Carbink is a way better way to go about it, because Carbink protects itself against the X's and you can charge your Medicham in the bench. Carbink Break is so good in anything fighting, 1 price card and you get 2 energies. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the rate is mighty fine, right? For a single energy you get 2 energy back, and it's any type of energy. Yeah, you can only attach them both to the same Pokemon, which for a minute there I kinda wait, can you attach to two different ones? No, we can't, but it's still very, very good and such a high rate, which I think it's super good. But no Max Elixir consistently, you need more energies that you might want. Yeah, exactly. You need more energy, I think, to play that, and I don't think you need as many, because you're already getting them back from the discard pile. Hello, Gaia Storm, I'm assuming it's Selena in there. How are you doing? You have class in 5 minutes, okay. Have a nice class, I guess. Carbink is literally borderline broken. I'm not so sure about that. Yeah, I will go to Spain to play League Challenges. I'm in May, I think. 100% sure about that. I just have to know which League Challenges I will go to. Maybe I'll talk to you guys afterwards, have a chat and see once they are scheduled or something like that. But yeah, I need to find my 5 remaining points to go to Worlds. Such a pain in the rear. Okay, let's move on with our set review. We have Zygardes in here, which are kind of garbage. The Dog Zygarde and the Weird Slug Zygarde. And then we have the Voltron Zygarde. Zygarde EX. I think this guy is good. It does have 10 extra HP. I haven't really thought about the math, but I think it might provide a very... like this 10 HP might be a very good against certain decks. I haven't really thought about it a lot, but might be very decent, especially with a Fighting Fury belt on this guy. Just goes up to 230. Seems awesome, to be honest. Maybe you want to be playing the Zygarde EX's own tool, the one that makes it hit for 200 damage. I like that tool as a finisher, but I don't think it's going to be necessary most of the times. So this guy, the first attack, it has 3 attacks, which right away it's something very nice, and it's a fighting type. Once again, a lot of support for fighting types. First attack is Earth Pulse, 20 damage. This attack does 20 more damage if there's a Stadium card in play. That's awesome. If that Stadium is a fighting Stadium and you're fighting against an EX Pokemon, it's 1 energy, 60 damage. If your energy is a strong, it's already 80 damage. So for a single energy, it's just a huge damage output. Sometimes it's going to be worse than Lucario, but there's, I think, where where the deck building comes into play, right? You just choose which guy you want to be attacking with. I think you play both in the deck because they provide different weaknesses. And actually, I think Lucario, in a vacuum, I think Lucario would be better because the second attack on Lucario is better than Cellstorm. This guy, well, the fact that this costs colorless energy, I think is irrelevant because most of the times we're going to be using this guy in a fighting only deck, so it doesn't really matter too much. This guy does 60 damage and he heals 30 damage from this Pokemon. Maybe that's useful, I don't really know, I haven't thought too much about it. But it just feels like Lucario's attack that where you draw cards is better, right? You're drawing cards, so most of the times that's going to be better than healing damage. And then Lucario's last attack also does 100 damage, so this is kind of similar in that regard. The advantage of playing this guy instead of Lucario is that, well, first of all, 10 extra HP. Second of all, this guy is weak to a different thing, which I think is more important once again because of Night March. And this guy can use the newer tool that you can play so that you can hit 200 damage on an attack. But the advantages of Lucario is the second attack is better. The first attack most of the times is going to be better, and it costs only 2 energy to retreat instead of 3. So I think there's upsides to playing both, but I do think this is a very nice Pokemon and a very cool guy that you can choose. So it's you have a lot of flexibility in that regard. You can just choose which guys you're running into your fighting deck. Let's see what you guys are saying. Any ideas you are considering for Worlds, like decks to play? Maybe you can do a video about that later. But right now I just want to focus on the set review. I think we already went way off track. Power memory is a little bit too much most of the time. Yeah, I agree with you, man. I think most of the times it's not going to be needed, but I think you still play one at least in the deck, right? It's really not like G-Booster in that G-Booster, well, first of all, it was so important back then because the grass decks like Genesect TX didn't really have a way to hit 200 damage otherwise because they didn't have like a grass strong energy, you know, and these guys do have that. They have other ways to increment the damage. And another thing that G-Booster did was go through other effects on the opponent's Pokemon. So, for example, if they had a Safeguarder, you could just use that thing and go around that effect anyway. And we can't do that with Power Memory. So the decks have to have a counter for the Safeguarders built in itself, something like their own Carpings or stuff like that. So I don't think it's going to be as good as G-Booster used to be, but I still think you play like as a one-off at least if you're playing Zygarde EX, because the upside is so good that you can just knock out any Pokemon from the face of the earth in that same turn. One thing is Fighting Fury Belt and Zygarde is great. Night March is struggling, eating 230 damage. Yeah, that's totally true. Most of the times I think that's going to be the tool that you want to stick on these guys. Just make it so out of reach for the opponent's Pokemon to deal with. I think Power Memory would be used as last resort instead of a main strategy. Yeah, definitely agree with that. Sorry, is it going to be a new standard build or is it going still from the X and Y base set? What? Gonzalo, I don't really know what you're asking about. And Rainbow Pit says hi. Hi, how's it going? Carbink Primal Groudon. Yeah, I thought about that, and here's the thing. I don't think the problem with Primal Groudon is charging it up. I think the problem with Primal Groudon is decks like Greninja make it really awkward for it, and I don't think Carbink fixes that, you know. I think Carbink is great against the same things that Groudon is great. You just have your Groudon on your bench and you're charging it up. You don't really need to speed it up that much, I think. The Carbink does let you build up the second Groudon really quickly, that is true. But wouldn't you rather just play a Zygarde in there anyways, and just... Because with Zygarde, you don't have the 1-hit KO potential that Groudon has, but at the same time you don't need to have 4 energy to attack. You can just attack with 1, 2, 3. So you get to build your own guy and start attacking as soon as turn 1 starts. So I don't know about that. I kind of feel like it's not really what you want to be doing most of the times with Groudon, but I might be wrong. I don't know. Umbreon EX, finally my favorite Pokemon, has an EX card. Definitely going to get this card on paper for my collection, but is it any good? I don't think it is. I want to get the full art as well. Love it. I think I don't really like this art that much, to be honest. I think it looks weird. All these 3D effects. I hate this kind of stuff, as you guys already know probably. But yeah, I'm definitely going to get this guy for my collection. But I'm going to wait until the hype dies down, because people have been hyping this card. It does seem like a very good second attack load. So let's start by reading the card, I guess. Night Veil for a colorless energy, 20 damage. Discard any number of cards from your hand and draw an equal number of cards from your deck. This is an interesting attack to have. Nice support attack, but I don't think this is the reason that you play this card. So unless the second attack is any good in your deck, I don't think you're going to be playing it for the first. Second attack for a colorless, for a dark and a double colorless. End game, 70 damage. If damage from this attack knocks out your opponent's active Mega Evolution Pokemon, take 2 additional prize cards. Okay, there's 2 problems with this thing. The first one is it's 2 energy, or at least 2 energy drops. It's a dark and a double colorless. It's only 70 damage, and it's a lot of work because you have to have something else make the Mega Pokemon get to very low HP before you start hitting them, and there's not even that many Mega Pokemon that we want to counter. I mean, what are the Mega Pokemon right now? Mega Sceptile, I guess, which by the way can heal off the damage. There's Mega Manectric, which by the way plays Rough Seas. There's Mega Mewtwo, which, by the way, can heal off the damage with the Shrine of Memories. So, I don't know, man. I kind of feel like Umbreon EX is not going to be great. Let's see what you guys think about it. Yeah, Primal Groudon X needs time to charge, but that's not really the problem of the deck. It's garbage. The amount of Megas in play are about 0 to 1. Yeah, exactly. Night and Mega Man Dex and Mega Ray. Oh, yeah, Mega Rayquaza. I haven't thought of that. 220. Okay, so maybe against Mega Rayquaza this is good. So we kind of have to hit 150 damage on the Mega Rayquaza, and then they knock you out because it's Mega Rayquaza, and then you promote this guy with 3 energy on it, and you take 4 prizes. Maybe that's going to work. It does seem a little bit like a Magic Christmas Land. I don't think it's going to be happening a lot of times. Mega Alakazam, yeah, maybe against Mega Alakazam, because that's definitely a Mega that's probably going to see play. This can be good. I don't know. I have to be honest. This card, I think it sucks. I'm the first person to tell you I'm really sad about that, because once again, it's my favorite Pokemon. I really love to have a very good card with Umbreon EX, but I don't think this is it. I think this is garbage. I actually think, no, not even that. I was going to say it's better in Expanded, because in Expanded it's so easier to charge this guy up that maybe you could play it as a one-off in Darkness type decks. so that I could just play it down, play a DCE, play a Max Elixir or a Dark Patch, switch into it and finish off a Mega. But I don't think there's many Megas also being played in Expanded. So yeah, but I definitely see more utility to Umbreon in Expanded than I see here. Tyranitar. Let's see if you guys are saying anything else. The problem would rather get Giratina X and Umbreon. Yeah, that is true. But it's not really one or the other, right? Because it depends on the deck you're playing. So if you're playing a Darkness type deck, you're not going to play Giratina EX in there. And if you're playing like a deck built around Giratina EX, you couldn't care less about Umbreon. So they're not interchangeable, you know. It's not something that you choose either one or the other. Yeah, definitely going to be overhyped, and that's why I'm waiting until I get mine for my collection, because I want to spend the least amount of money that I can. Tyranitar, a stage 2, very, very bad card, I think. Roar of Anger, it's an interesting ability. You may use this ability when you play this card from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon. Attach as many Darkness Energy cards from your discard pile to this Pokemon as prize cards as your opponent has taken. Maybe you could play this card with Milotic, the one that you sacrifice and your opponent takes prizes, so that you can bring energy from the discard pile to your Pokemon. Maybe that's something that would work. Maybe we could build 5 energy on this guy to be able to use Dark Mountain. And what do you get in return if you actually get those 5 energy out? 150 damage. Discard the top 2 cards of your deck. This attack does 50 more damage for each supported card discarded this way. So not only does it not kill an EX Pokemon in a single hit after you build 5 energy on your stage 2 Pokemon, you have to discard to hit a supporter on your top 2 cards and discard it to be able to 1-hit KO something. This doesn't seem great. Even with a Muscle Band, you're dealing 170 without question, and that doesn't kill a lot of EXs anyway, so this is a very I think this is a wasted opportunity. I mean, for a stage 2 to be played, I don't think the Pokemon Company needs to worry about the power level of stage 2 cards. I think they can push them a little bit. If you look at Garchomp, that guy is super bonkers, and it's not even that great. I mean, it's a tier 2 deck at most. So I don't know. I think if you just make stage 2s at that same power level, maybe they get a chance to be playable, and that's actually cool. I mean, that's what you should want, right? Stage 2s force your players to play and to build your decks in a certain way, and I think just giving them a reward for that much effort would be cool. I mean, you just get Tyranitar, which just makes you work so hard for nothing, for even, I don't know, just a wasted opportunity in my opinion. It just at least if it was 200 base damage, if it didn't have this stupid text over here and it's just 200 damage for 5 energy, maybe that could be something we could play with, but as it is, I think this card just sucks. I just work so hard for nothing. Rainbow Pit, have a nice class. I don't like how many. Yeah, Tyranitar. There's also that people love Tyranitar as a Pokemon, as a character, and the Pokemon Company keeps making bad Tyranitar cards, and that kind of sucks, I guess. Tyranitar EX was really, really bad, to the surprise of no one, but I guess, I don't know. Yeah, it is. The problem is not getting the guy in your hands. I mean, you do have Heavy Ball, but that's not really the problem. The issue here is that you're working so much, you have to have 5 energy on this guy, and afterwards the payout is not that great because you're not even knocking out stuff in a single hit. Mandibuzz. I want to talk about Mandibuzz because I think it's interesting in that, okay, it's a stage 1 to start off, which isn't great for this type of stuff, but I like Bone Drop. It's a colorless attack, which means we can splash this guy into any deck, and you choose one of your opponent's Pokemon that has an ability, and this attack does 60 damage to that Pokemon. So you're sniping stuff which have abilities, but it's 60 damage, so that's a lot of damage for only 1 energy. And what this card screams to me is Trevenant counter. So if the opponent is playing a Trevenant deck and you actually build a Mandibuzz, you start attacking for a single energy, and if you attack the active, the weakness comes into play, because this is dealing damage. You don't apply weakness and resistance to the bench, but you do apply to the active. So you're dealing 120 damage to the Trevenant. And even if you manage to stick, if you're going first and you manage to stick a Muscle Band on your Volabi or whatever this thing is called, and then you evolve into Mandibuzz, you're dealing 80 damage, which to a Trevenant break is 160, so it's exactly their HP. So if Trevenant breaks actually became something like broken or bonkers, I like that Mandibuzz is like a counter that decks could start playing just to get rid of the Trevenants, because it's for a single colorless energy, so we could play this guy in any deck. What are you guys saying? They either give stage 2 more power, easier way to set them up. Yeah, definitely true. They stage 2s just need to be better overall, because you're implicitly you're already working so hard to get them out that the payout has to be there, or else you just don't play them. The stage 2s have to be, stats wise, they have to be better than EXs, not worse. Because EXs, they do have a disadvantage, which is giving out prizes, but they don't have any disadvantage by setting up, which I think is way worse than giving out a random prize after the opponent kills them. Because there's so many ways that you can avoid getting killed that, I don't know, it's way harder to set up. Tyranitar can be a small tech line in Darkrai EX decks. Not really. I mean, it's a stage 2. It's never a small tech. I mean, I have to play minimum 3 cards, right? Has to be the Larvitar, the Pupitar, or whatever, and the Tyranitar. So it's never a small tech. It's a stage 2, man. Yeah, it takes just so much space. And what is Tyranitar even doing that Yveltal is not doing? Have you ever put 5 energy on an Yveltal? Do you know what that thing does with 5 energy on? Why do you even need Tyranitar? I'd love if they make a card that has an ability attack stating that it doesn't take damage from the attack Night March. Yeah, that would be interesting. Poofitar. Okay, let's move on. This Bronzong is garbage, but Bronzong Break is a thing, maybe, I guess. It is a break evolution, so it's a stage 2. Gold Rain, this is a very awkward attack name. This card has many metal energy attached to this Pokemon as you like, then choose a number of your opponent's Pokemon equal to the number of energy discarded. You can choose the same Pokemon multiple times. This attack does 30 damage to each of those Pokemon for each time you choose. Let's assume that you have no energy in play because you used the huge Gold Rain the previous turn. If you have 4 Bronzongs out, you can have 5 energy again out, right? Because you can use 4 Bronzongs and then attach an energy from your hand. So that's 5 energy. If you discard them all, 5 times 3, that's 150 damage spread any way that you want. So that kind of seems like a very good scenario. It seems great against Night March, for example, because you can definitely spread some damage around and take some knockouts for sure, but I don't know, it seems like a lot of work also. Like, you have to build 4 Bronzongs, but maybe we can do it, I don't know. But if the opponent is playing something like a Mega deck, you're not going to knock them out, and you have to do this Gold Rain every single turn also to do a lot of damage. So I don't know if this is going to be good or not. I guess that if you're playing Bronzong anyways, you stick 1 Bronzong Break in there, because you turn your Bronzongs into attackers. But I'm skeptical this is going to be awesome. But yeah, the fact that it goes, once again, the better break Pokemon are the ones that go on top of already good Pokemon, and Bronzong is already a good Pokemon, so maybe this is enough to make it good. But Bronzong is not being played again, like in the last months. We haven't seen a lot of Bronzong decks anyway, so maybe this doesn't change that much. So I don't know. It makes it rain, yeah, but it's a golden rain, so I don't know if it's the type of rain that you want to be to have. I need Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon collaboration someday. Goku EX does, yeah, over 9,000 damage for a colorless. Give stage 2 basic some kind of evolution, acceleration, or means to swarm the basic stage 1s. I think maybe dirty jokes about this attack. Not a bad card, but better ways to spend the energy. I would just add one on a Dialga Bronzong deck. Yeah, I think if Bronzong decks play it, maybe you play a break because why not? But I don't think it's something that you go out of your way to build around. Lucario, on the other hand, this is quite an interesting Pokemon. It is a stage 1, but it has 2 interesting attacks. The first one, the thing that's interesting about it is that it does 50 damage for a single energy. There's not really that many Pokemon right now, relevant Pokemon, mind you, that are weak to metal types. If there were, this would do some damage, I guess, for a single energy. But it's not affected by weakness or resistance. Yeah, just forget what I just said. Forget the first attack. I think the thing here is fight alone, of course. The second attack, 30 damage. If you have less Pokemon in play than your opponent, this attack does 60 more damage times the difference in the number of Pokemon you and your opponent have. Basically, you count your Pokemon, you count your opponent's Pokemon, you subtract them, and you do damage times the disadvantage in your favor. So, for example, if you only have 1 Pokemon in play, and your opponent has 3, that's 3 minus 1, so it's 2 times 60 plus 30, so that's 150 damage. And I don't know, it does seem like a lot of work, but it also seems like a lot of damage. And there's a lot of decks that need to charge up their bench right now. Even Night March decks need to play their... I guess against Night March decks, you're not really worried about dealing huge numbers of damage, but I don't know. Mega Lakazam decks are probably going to be a thing, and they want to fill their bench. So maybe just play a lot of Robo Subs, stuff like that, and unknown stuff that you can discard. And you can even play... what's the name of the stadium that cuts your bench size? Parallel City. You can even play Parallel City and then just discard all the Pokemon that are not unknown or Robo Subs, and then you can discard them as you will and get rid of your bench so that you deal more damage. That might seem like a cool thing to be doing, but the reason I don't know if this is going to be good is that I think there's some decks like Greninja that have a very easy way to deal with 110 HP Pokemon, and they can even snipe the bench. So if you're playing a very low bench, they can just get rid of all of your bench Pokemon and then kill your active, and then you're out of Pokemon and you die. So that's something to keep in mind, I guess. And that's maybe a reason that this guy is not going to be great. Even against Night March, you're dealing a lot of damage, but it doesn't really matter too much. And they are also dealing a lot of damage to you, and you have a worse time because you have to build your stage 1 to be able to attack. So yeah, I don't know about Lucario. I'm definitely going to be building the deck. It does seem quite a lot of fun, and I love this type of cards, but I'm not sure it's going to be seeing a lot of competitive play. You're saying, let's see what you're saying. What we need is Seeker reprint. Yeah, maybe. The new Bronzong prevents all effects, including damage to bench Pokemon. Not bad as a one-off deck in Bronzong decks. I disagree. I think that if you're playing Bronzong decks, you don't want to... Because you can only play 4 Bronzongs. So if you play one of the newer ones, you cannot play one of the old ones. So you can only play 3. And there's already stuff that does that. So, Mr. Mime doesn't prevent all effects. It only prevents damage, but what effects are you worried about? Damage spread or something like that? Maybe against Greninja, because it's damage. It's putting damage counters, not dealing damage, right? Once again, yeah, I don't know. Doesn't seem too great. Just because you have to cut one Bronzong. One of the other Bronzongs that brings energy into play, which is what you want to be doing with Bronzong Break anyway. You want to be bringing stuff back from your discard pile into your Bronzong Break so that you can use your attack for massive amounts of damage. So I don't know. Lucario based deck, yeah, I think it's going to be cool at least. You can control your opponent bench with Parallel City, Skyfield, Target Whistle. Yeah, that's true. Target Whistle is very interesting in that deck because you can not only bring their Shaymins back so that you can Lysander them out, but you also are dealing 60 extra damage for each of those Target Whistles that you play. Absol from Roaring Skies, Robosub, Unknown, yeah, exactly. Lucario with 2/2 Captivating Pokepuff, Target Whistle. Yeah, Captivating Pokepuff. It's something that we're maybe getting in the future, at least not in this set, but maybe in the future. I don't know which set it's coming out in. I think it's some promo, right? I don't know. Super Scoop Up with Bats. Why do you need Bats here, man? The Lucario is already dealing a bazillion damage, so I don't think you need to be playing Bats here. I'd just rather have Unknowns and Robosubs so that you can control your bench without dying or running the risk of dying. Your solution to everything is adding Bats to it, yeah. 4-4 Lucario with 2-2 Bronzong. Maybe. I don't really think the problem with Lucario is the energy, though. I think if you play... You don't really need to play Muscle Band in that deck, so you can actually play Experience Share so that your energy doesn't go to waste. But yeah, maybe you can also play Bronzong in there to bring the energy back. The thing with Bronzong is that it forces you to have something on your bench that you can't get rid of. So... And it prevents Trevenant break damage. Yeah, that's true. That is true. It's also, I don't think, something that we are too worried about if you're playing that sort of deck. But I guess we'll have to see. It's definitely nice to have the different types of effects. What I don't like about the different Bronzong is that you really want to play a lot of the other Bronzongs, so you're kind of hurting yourself by playing another different Bronzong than the one which is your basic strategy. So I don't know. Let's see. Genosect TX. This guy, well, one thing that this guy can do is have a G booster on it, but I don't think you're going to have grass energy on this guy anytime soon. Rapid Blaster. For 3 metal energy, 100 damage, you may discard as many metal energy from this Pokemon as you like. This attack does 20 more damage for each metal energy discarded this way, so it can knock out stuff in a single hit. Maybe this is a better card than... what's the name of the other Pokemon EX? The Tyrantrum EX. Because Tyrantrum EX needed Dragon Energy sometimes, or maybe just Fighting Energy in there, and this guy doesn't need it, and you might not be... I mean... Charging up 3 energy in a single turn is easy for Metal decks to do because you can double Bronzong and play an energy from your hand. But if you only have 3 energy, you can only deal 160. I guess 170 with a Fighting Fury Belt or 180 with a Muscle Band. So it can actually work, but I don't think it's too good. Maybe you play it as a one-off in some Metal decks, but I don't think it's going to be the thing that makes the deck any better than it is right now. Because if you are looking for 1-hit KOs, you can play Tyrantrum with some minimal effort anyways, so... And it does have an ability though, Cassette Change. Once during your turn before you attack him, or return a Pokemon tool, attach this Pokemon to your hand. Yeah, I guess that can help you change. I mean, you can play a Floatstone so that you can retreat, and then change a Floatstone for some way to hit your opponent in the face, like with a Muscle Band or Fighting Fury Belt or something like that. But you can only do this once a turn. Yeah, so you can't go Floatstone, retreat, and then bring it back into the active. And I mean, you can over the course of 2 turns, because that's a retreat. So I don't know about that. I don't know if this ability is going to be that useful. I think if this guy is played, I think it's for the attack, and the way to make it good, it doesn't need too much, but I think there may be better stuff right now. Maybe we have to test it out, I guess. We have a bunch of nonsense in here. Mega Altaria EX. I think this card sucks. It's in the fairy types. The basic Altaria is a colorless Pokemon. This guy does for a fairy and the double colorless 100 damage if this Pokemon has any special energy attached to it, which it will have most of the times. I think if you're building this deck, this attack does 30 more damage, so it's 130, and you heal 30 damage from each of your Pokemon. It does heal damage from all of our Pokemon, which is nice. Maybe against Revenant or something like that spreads damage around, but 130 is not a lot of damage, so it will have a lot of trouble, I think, dealing with actually heavy hitters as far as Pokemon go. So I'm not a huge fan of Altaria EX, Mega Altaria EX, so I think I will move on from this guy. There's a Diancie EX in here. Maybe we can play this with old Mega Diancie, I don't know if this is any good. This guy has 150 HP, which is lower than most EXs, but once again I think it's better than the old Diancie EX. I don't really remember. Twinkle Veil, the ability, as long as this Pokemon is your active, any damage onto your Pokemon by attacks is reduced by 30. So it's any Pokemon, I guess, which is fine. It protects your bench really nicely because most of the times they are not dealing more than 30 damage by attacks to the bench anyways. It also protects itself. And then Miracle Stage, for a Fairy and a double call, 60 damage. If there's a Stadium card in play, which there will be, this attack does 50 more damage. So we can assume it's 110 damage for 3 energy. I don't think this is great. Even in Fairy decks, I think we can do much, much better than the NCX. Plus, that's very low HP on an EX, which I don't really... Well, actually, that's not that little HP, because we are reducing 30 damage. So this is like a 180 HP Pokemon. But it's 180, and we're dealing 110. And I think Gardevoir is better. And if we're playing Fairy types, maybe this... we want to play Aromatisse and Fairy Energy anyways, not Double Colorless Energy. So it kind of seems a little bit awkward. I don't know if this guy will find a home. I don't think it's that great. So I'd be surprised, to be honest. Let's see what you guys are saying. Genesect EX can be a good deck. Not sure about making a dedicated deck though. Yeah, I agree. Maybe as a one-off, it might be decent. You can use 2, but he can only use 2. To use 2 tools, he has to wait for a turn. So it has a good resistance and seldom uses weakness. It also seldom uses weakness. It's also not easy to knock out with a various amount of energy attacks. Yeah, that's true, but I don't know. I don't think that's bringing anything new to the Fairy decks that the Metal decks that the Metal decks didn't already have, which was a huge Pokemon that took 1-8 KOs. I think Tyrantrum is better at that. So I don't know. I don't think that was a problem with the Metal deck. I think it's just too slow, and Genesect does nothing to fix that. I don't see Fairy being competitive anytime soon. I agree. They print another DNCX and no Link. Yeah, that is true. Because there's no Mega in the expansion as well. Fairy decks need some KO potential. We do have KO potential with Gardevoir EX. I mean, the thing with Fairies is that it cannot be too bonkers, because if it is too bonkers, Max Potion and Aromatisse just run over everything else. It was a very good deck when the format was much slower. Before Max Potion was rotated out in the first place, and it didn't even run Fairy Energy almost. Basically ran all special energy, and you could just move it around and heal damage, and that alone was awesome on its own. So you have to be careful when you print Fairy type Pokemon, because if they are too broken, if they hit for a lot of damage really quickly, Aromatisse will just throw it out of the... just break it in half and make the deck super good. Kingdra EX, funny thing about Kingdra, I think, is that it's a dragon type Pokemon and it doesn't cost 2 different types of energy. Well, I guess it does if you read the text of the attack, but you don't need to. So that's interesting. That's something different. Heavy Storm for colorless energy, 20 damage, discard any Stadium card in play. This is nothing to write home about. Fodder Water and 3 colorless Dragon Tail does 60 damage, base damage. This attack does 30 more damage for each basic lightning energy attached to this Pokemon. So if the other 3 colorless are lightning, you're dealing 150 damage. And you don't have to stop there. You can add extra lightning energy on this guy. But I think 4 energy is already a lot. So I don't think this is going to be a great Pokemon. If this was exactly... like, if this cost 1 less energy and it dealt 80 damage, I think it would be way, way better. Of course, because it would be extra 80 damage, but it would maybe be playable. As it is, I don't think it is. Maybe we can play this in some sort of Eels deck in Expanded, but I don't think this guy is going to see a lot of play. I don't think it's that good. It's just too many energy on the same Pokemon, and it's an EX with only 170 HP, which is not that hard to hit. Kingdra Mega Magnetic. I mean, if you're attacking with Mega Magnetic, I don't think you need Kingdra in that deck. I think you have better ways to spend your energy on than this guy. I don't know. It kind of feels like it's not that great. You kind of need 5 energy to 1-8 KO anything. Or at least 4 energy and a Muscle Band. So that's not really a very good rate for an attack, I think. Kingdra turn 1, double max elixir, and double dragon. Oh yeah, we can play double dragon with this guy. I was forgetting about that. So maybe with double dragon, I don't know. Double dragon and Aromatisse. What you guys think about that? We can play our Kingdras and our Giratinas. I actually built a dragon deck once with Giratina, with and Aromatisse in expanded, because I needed some walls like the Latias EX, so it had to be an expanded, I guess, and also Prism Energy and all sorts of stuff thrown in there, and it was quite fun to play. I don't know if I showed you guys that. I think I actually streamed once and I played that deck, and this would fit right into there because it does deal 1-hit KOs after a certain point, if you are in a good position. But I don't know, it's such a niche thing. I don't think this guy is going to be any good, honestly. Does not count for the damage, you say. Oh yeah, you're right, sorry, forget everything I just said. This attack does 30 more damage for each basic lightning energy, so it has to be basic. So it's, Jesus Christ, such a bad card. Why do they even bother printing this stuff? I don't know. I'd much rather not have as many EXs, just have half of them and them being the better ones, you know, so that every time you get an EX it's a good card instead of a rubbish thing. I know there's some fans of Kingdra, but I think even the fans would rather have a good card instead of a bad card. Although at the same time, a better card would be more expensive, so if you're a collector, you would rather just have a less expensive card. I don't know. Meowth, Turmoil for double colorless energy. Choose one of your opponent's Pokemon that has any damage counter on it. This attack does 50 damage to that Pokemon. There's a lot of damage on a basic Pokemon that's really easy to charge, and it does have 70 HP, which is more than most basic small Pokemon. But I don't know if this is going to see some play or not, but it is interesting, at least. That's worth saying. The fact that we deal 50 damage to one of our opponent's potentially benched Pokemon. Ooh, sorry about that. I'm kind of sleepy. But they do need to have damage counters on them before that, so I don't really see it being good. I don't know. What is this? Kangaskhan. Wow, interesting drawing. It didn't seem like it was Kangaskhan. 40 damage, 100 damage, so it's garbage. Oh, okay, we Aerodactyl EX. Or not EX, sorry. Fossil Aerodactyl. Restored Pokemon. Put this card onto your bench with the effect of an old Ember. Yeah, like we're not using Omastar to bring this guy into play. And I briefly mentioned this guy having a nice rate because it does 120 damage for just a double colorless energy. And actually the effect of attack is quite nice because you discard a special energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. Once again, I think this combines really nicely with Omastar Break because you can bring your opponent's Pokemon that has any special energy attached to it from the bench if they are building a benched Pokemon to be able to attack you, and then you get rid of it with Jet Draft. But at the same time, that's not 1-hit KO on anything, and it's only 120 HP Pokemon, so maybe that's not good enough. I don't know. I think we kind of have to wait and see, or at least test the deck out. I think it's worth testing for sure, but I'm not sure it's going to be any good. But it is an interesting Pokemon, and the rate for the attack is actually nice. So 2 energy, 120 damage, or it's just an energy attachment with double colorless energy. Yeah, might work, maybe. I don't know. Lugia. Lugia is a basic Pokemon. It's also a colorless one. Ability Pressure. When this Pokemon is active, damage to this Pokemon by your Pokemon's attacks is reduced by 20. So it's like 140 HP Pokemon, sometimes more if you are not 1-hit KOing it. And for 3 colorless energy, Rising Burn, 60 damage. If your opponent's active Pokemon is an EX, this attack is 120 basically. This is like... actually, yeah, this is exactly like Bouffalant, isn't it? I mean, the only thing that's different is the... well, Bouffalant I think had 3 retreat costs, and the weaknesses were different. It did not have a resistance, if I remember correctly. It was weak to fighting, and this guy does have a resistance, which is better, but it's weak to lightning. And I think actually this guy is better because there's not as many lightning Pokemon that are good, and there's going to be a lot of fighting Pokemon that are good. So I think Lugia is going to be a little bit better. Buffalo saw a lot of play actually for I think the type of Pokemon it is, like as a one-off. So I think Lugia is going to see some play as well. In formats where you can play both, like expanded, I've seen some Buffalo being played in expanded. So I think Lugia kinda replaces it. But yeah, I do like Lugia. I think it's an interesting Pokemon. Just because we have Buffalo and it was played, so I guess this guy does something very similar to it. And there's a break also that you can put on Lugia, but I don't think you really want to be playing the break in the decks that you want to be playing Lugia as a one-off. The Sting has 150 HP, and you keep the ability, so it's kind of like 170 Pokemon. Destruction Wave for 4 colorless energy, it's a lot of energy. Does 150 damage, and this is the bad part. You have to discard 2 energy attached to this Pokemon. So it makes it really hard to attack the following turn, unless we have a way to charge this guy up. I mean, it's stage 1, maybe you can use Bronzongs to charge it up, and then deal damage over and over again. But because it's a lot of damage, it's 150 on a stage 1 Pokemon, that might be nice, I don't know. Maybe you can find a way to make this guy work. But it's not 100% guaranteed that we're going to be knocking out EX Pokemon anyways. Maybe against those decks we just use Rising Burn and forget about the Destruction Wave. I don't know. It does seem interesting at least, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be a competitive deck at all. See what you guys are saying here. Yeah, Double Dragon doesn't work. I misspoke. I saw someone say that here in the chat, and I assumed they were right, but I haven't really read Greninja's attack as I should. Yeah, Aerodactyl maybe can be playable in the Fossil deck. I don't know. We'll have to test it out, I guess. They should have a Deadpool-like Pokemon. It will be a Pokemon that can bend reality. Maybe on a dark deck with an Yveltal non-EX to hit EXs. Yeah, exactly. Like the Bouffalant used to be played in. I don't know. Witchmer. We have another basic Pokemon with a round attack. Only for 10 damage for each rounder, but it is a basic, so maybe you can pick this guy up and the Tadpole from the previous set, and maybe you can build a good expanded deck that plays round Pokemon, I don't know, maybe. But it is cool that they at least make the common Pokemon, the garbage Pokemon. Once again, I keep repeating myself, but it's super nice that the garbage Pokemon at least have some play value to them. Louderred is garbage, but Explode is as an interesting attack. So the first one, for 3 colorless energy, Ambush does 80 damage, flip a coin if adds this attack does 40 more damage. It's not great, but the second attack, Cacophony, at the end of your opponent's next turn, discard the defending Pokemon and all cards attached to it. You're not throwing a prize, I think. You're only discarding the Pokemon, but it's super interesting because you get rid of the energy and the tools they might have attached to the Pokemon. So it's kind of cool. While you're not drawing prizes out of that, maybe you find some way to make this profitable. I don't know. It does seem like a very cool attack at least. Kind of struggling to find the adjectives to describe this guy, but it is like a very interesting and unique attack. The second one. If the opponent finds no way to switch out of their active Pokemon, they just get the Pokemon discarded and all things attached to it. Altaria EX. Powerful gain. We do have the Mega. We already looked into it and it wasn't great, but let's see if the basic is any good. Powerful gain, 30 damage, plus if this Pokemon recovered any HP during this turn, this attack does 16 more damage, remove 3 damage counters, so it has to have healed itself during last turn, which isn't too hard to do, but it had to have damage on it before for this to work. And I guess we deal 90 damage for a double colorless energy. I guess that's, as you know, that's a worse rate than the Aerodactyl already is, so I'm not too sure. Shining Wind, 80 damage. This Pokemon has no weakness during your opponent's next turn. Maybe that's relevant, I don't know. I don't think we're going to be playing this guy or its Mega, so yeah, there is that. Doesn't seem like a very good EX Pokemon. Once again, seems like it's just, I don't know, it really has nothing else to be said about it. I mean, it's so lackluster. I mean, just nothing really too special to be said about the card. Just too boring of an EX to even speak of. Audino EX. Another colorless EX. This one has 180 HP, Drain Slap, 20 damage for a single colorless energy, heal 20 damage from this Pokemon. Once again, nothing too out of the ordinary. And then Do the Wave. I like that they brought Do the Wave back because I used to play on the first edition around that time, and Do the Wave was a thing back then. 3 colorless energy, 60 damage. This attack does 10 more damage for each of your benched Pokemon. This is also almost the same rate as the old Do the Wave used to be, and that's not saying much because back then the Pokemon were way worse than they are right now. So this doesn't seem like a lot of damage. If we have a Skyfield out and 8 Pokemon on our bench, we are dealing 8 plus 60, which is 140. That's not a lot of damage. 140, even with a Muscle Band, we're not 1-hit KOing any EX with a full bench, so this doesn't seem like a great thing. Maybe the Mega has something going for it. Let's see. For the same amount of energy, Magical Symphony 110. If you play the supporter card from your hand this turn, which you will have played because most of the times you're playing supporters on your turn, this attack does 50 damage for one of your opponent's bench Pokemon, so that's a lot of damage actually. 110 and 50 to the bench, but it is a Mega, and we kind of have to go out of our way to play Megas in our deck. It's not, if it's an EX, we can maybe play it as a one-off, as a tech, something like that. If it's a Mega, it kind of forces us to play Spirit Links. It forces us to play the Mega, which is like a stage 1 that needs a Spirit Link so that we don't lose our turn. So I don't really see this guy being great. Once again, I think this is just a very bad Mega. What do you guys think? Am I missing something? Do the Wave is freaking fun. Yeah, I mean, it's an old school attack. I like that thing. If the names of the attack don't really matter too much unless they're named Round or Night March, so I guess you'd just rather have like a nostalgia trip with the attack names. I like that. Round deck, it's still competitive. Yeah, I don't know about that, but it is fun. Bats with Mega Aldino. Yeah, it's Mega decks with bats I'm not a fan of, but it is tempting because this guy does damage to the bench. So I'll tell you right now, it's not, I don't know, it just Mega Aldin just feels so bad, man. Doesn't seem like it's going to be that great. Once again, too much work for very little pay. You gotta do the wave while you announce attack. Yeah, but if it's only yourself, it's a very awkward wave, right? You have to bring your friends with you and you have to sit next to you, so even that is going to be bad because you have to have your friends sitting by your side so that you can all do the wave. So it doesn't seem great as an attack. Seems like a lot of work to make it work. Okay, we got all our Pokemon behind us, so we start looking at the items and the trainer cards. We start off with all the Spirit Links, which I'm just going to ignore. Bent Spoon, attach a Pokemon tool to one of your Pokemon, blah blah blah. Prevent all effects of attacks except damage until the Pokemon this card is attached to. This is quite an interesting thing to have, I guess. I don't really see what it does right now, but it's a nice tool to have around. You never know when protecting yourself from effects of attacks is going to be good, and I like having this thing in the format. It's a nice thing to have at any times. And then we have Chaos Tower, which was one of those very beautiful two-way stadiums that you can choose which way you play. They actually look quite similar, which is kind of a shame. And they also, there's another thing that I don't like about this. Let's just read the side. So if you choose the red side, this player's Pokemon cannot be asleep or paralyzed, and if you choose the other side, this player's Pokemon cannot be poisoned or confused. So I guess you kind of play this if you're worried about special conditions, a lot of different special conditions. So you can choose which special conditions you're protecting yourself against. And it kind of means that you cannot play special conditions yourself because you are also protecting your opponent's Pokemon from other special conditions, so it would be really awkward if you needed to protect your Pokemon, for example, from sleep, and you're trying to poison their Pokemon. So I guess that's something that you have to keep in mind. But I'd rather... My favorite of these stadiums, of the three that we have, is Parallel City, because Parallel City, sometimes you play it in decks and you want both sides at different times. So it's actually pretty strategic which side you play. Sometimes you want to play the red side facing you, sometimes you want to play the blue side facing you. And with this thing, most of the times you just want to play the same side every time, right? The same happens with the previous one, which was the one with the metal and darkness types, which you pretty much only play the darkness type side facing you, or if you're playing a metal deck, I guess you can play the other side always facing you. So it's always the same for each deck. So it's like the stadium only works one way. Anyways, so I like Parallel City a lot better. I'd love to see more of that design, so that it's two different effects, so that it matters a lot which side you want facing you. So yeah, I like that design a lot more than I like this one. Well, yeah, maybe it's a useful card. I don't know. Protecting against special conditions does seem good. Let's see what you guys are saying. Do the wave with Laser Band and Muscle Band. It's too much work, man. It's such. And with Laser Bank, remember, you cannot have your bench with 8 Pokemon, so you can only have 5. So it's 30 plus 5, it's 8 plus 60 plus Muscle Band. So it's 8 plus 8, it's still 160, so it's not enough. How they make Pokemon, if it's an animal or object, they make a Pokemon out of it somehow. Because there's a keychain, bag, or trash a sword. Yeah, that's true. Megalodon suffers the same fate as Kangaskhan. Come out when fighting decks are popular again. Oh yeah, that's also something that I didn't even get to speak about the weakness. Didn't even get there. The attacks were so bad that I didn't even notice that it was weak against fighting types. Play Darts Vader theme in the background. We approach N. Yeah, we are approaching N. That is true. Chaos Tower can be decent in Darkrai Hypno. All Night Party can be used by the opponent too, and you may not always. Yeah, that's also that is true. That's a very interesting thing that you're saying. But it doesn't allow you to heal 30 damage from the thing in that deck. And if you're hitting 1-hit KOs with Darkrai, you're not really too worried about the opponent being asleep or not. You just want to hit the 1-hit KOs. Anyways, Bandspoon is bad. This new double stadium is bad. I mean, it's not. I don't really see how we use it, but it's one of those things, right? It's nice to have around, because all of a sudden that might come a deck. Like, imagine that you're playing some years ago and you have Bandspoon around here. You're thinking, yeah, it's a garbage card, but then all of a sudden, the deck and cover deck with Excelgor starts being a thing, right? All of a sudden, Bandspoon would be awesome in that regard. You can just play it down, and protect yourself against paralysis, which was a thing with that deck. So, I don't know. You never know, right? When a card is going to be good or not. So, I mean, Wonder Energy, the Fairy Special Energy, is also bad, but it has seen a lot of play in Expanded when people started playing Expanded, because there were the Gardevoir decks coming out, and a lot of people were playing the Excelgor Trevenant decks, so you could just put down a special energy, Wonder Energy, and get protected from the paralysis from Excelgor. So that was fine, and it's a bad card, so it does have some uses. So it's nice stuff to have. You never know what you want to do with. Depends on the meta, right? It's nice to have tools. Devolution Spray, very interesting card. Definitely going to try to build Fortress in this format in Standard. We are missing some ways to bring back stuff from the discard pile, like Recycle, but now we do have other stuff that we can use, like Puzzle of Time, which is actually better than Recycle was. So yeah, maybe we can build that deck, Fortress. What are you guys saying? Fortress done with Forest of GP and Death Spray. Yeah, exactly. We can play Latios to be able to attack on the first turn and combine some more damage, but then we play Fortress and just try to donk our opponents on the first turn with going all in with our deck. I'm definitely going to try to build that as soon as this expansion comes out, because we basically have all the cards. This just makes them legal, right? So if I have all the cards, I'm just going to try to build a deck anyways. We got some fossils here. Energy Pouch. Pokemon Tool. If the Pokemon this tool is attached to is knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack, return all basic energy attached to that Pokemon from your discard pile to your hand. I don't know about this card. Maybe, once again, it's a tool that maybe we can get some use out of. It's nice to have this type of effect, but I don't think it's that great. Don't really see a use for it. Maybe I'm missing something. Tell me if you guys see some way that we can use this thing profitably. Don't really see it being too useful, because the energy they go out of. I mean, we are using this instead of any other items. Like, we cannot be playing Fighting Fury Belts or Muscle Bands or stuff like that. So we have to play this item instead. And then you lose the energy. You would be losing the energy, but you could also play the Energy Recycler, for example, or Energy Retrieval, and get the energy back into your hand. So basically it would do the same as this thing, but it's better to play those cards because they don't force you to play a tool on your Pokemon. So I don't think this is going to be that great, but maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. Chaos Tower is one of those unplayable cards that is nice to have available. Its immune, ability lock, and item lock, art lock decks are not fun. Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. I mean, even if you go back to Expanded and people start playing that deck and cover deck, you can protect yourself by playing the Stadium. They are not locking you out of Stadiums anyway, so you can just put it down anytime, and you get protected against paralysis. So Meganazone decks might like Energy Pouch. Yeah, but are Meganazone decks even a thing? And aren't you playing Fisherman anyways and stuff? Ways to bring energy back? I don't know. Blastoise and Expanded with Pouch. Yeah, maybe once again you have superior energy retrieval in Expanded. I don't know, I think it's just better than Energy Pouch. Feels like it is. But then again, that deck does not play any other tools really. Maybe a Floatstone. But you don't really mind discarding energy anyways. I don't know. Yeah, maybe it is a thing in that deck. Not really sure though. Energy Reset. Return any number of energy cards attached to your Pokemon in play to your hand. I like this card a lot better than I like Energy Pouch actually. It's not when the opponent kills one of your Pokemon. It's whenever you like. So I don't know. There might be something cool that we can do with this card. Let's think a little bit about it. What can we do with this guy? Bring energy back to our hand. I mean, we can reattach it if we have attached to a Pokemon and we want to reattach the energy any different way, because we don't need to return all energy. We can just return one or two and then reattach them. So it's kind of like an energy switch in that regard, but it's an energy switch that we can actually do more than once, because we can, I don't know, maybe there's something that we can do with it. Does seem like an interesting effect for sure, bringing the energy back into our hand. It doesn't need to be basic energy, so we can actually bring any energy back to our hand that we want and reattach it to any of our Pokemon. It is also a way to protect yourself against Slowpoke, I guess, unless you're under item lock, but there's really nothing else you can do in that regard. But yeah, I don't know. So many other better items to play than Energy Pouch. It's not a bad card, just a lot of other cards better to play. Like this most, yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. Fairy Drop. Remove 5 counters from one of your Pokemon that has any fairy energy attached to it. I don't really know why you would play this card, to be honest. I mean, if you're playing fairies, aren't you playing Aromatisse? And if you're playing Aromatisse, aren't you playing Max Potions? So I don't really know that this is the thing that fairy decks want. It doesn't seem like the card that's going to save the deck. But we do have a nice Fairy Garden reprint. Yeah, well spotted. That is indeed a Fairy Garden reprint that we're getting. Although, once again, Aromatisse is probably going to rotate out of the format. That's kind of sad, but yeah, the Stadium is not. Fossil Excavation Kit. Search your deck for any of 2 of our fossils. You can combine them, so you can get a Dolmen and a Helix fossil, for example, and then you put them into your hand. It's a nice thing to have if you're playing fossil decks, I guess, if you're going that route. But once again, as I mentioned, I think just getting Archies is better. It's a better way to get your fossils out, because you get Omastar immediately, and then you can start getting your fossils out every single turn. No questions. You don't need Fossil Excavation Kits or anything like that. Last is a recommendation. Draw cards equal to the number of your opponent's bench basic Pokemon. This doesn't seem like a great supporter, because it depends 100% on your opponent's bench. Sometimes it's going to be wonderful, sometimes it's going to suck, and it's the times that it sucks that I have a problem with. And also, I don't think we are really in the market for many draw card supporters right now. We're getting N back, for Christ's sake. I mean, last recommendation doesn't seem great at all. Seems like we have so many better options right now. Let's see what you guys are saying. The main purpose of this set is to offset most of the power creep we have. Yeah, that might be true. I mean, because we're going to have a rotation, so most of these cards that I'm saying are garbage might be playable, or at least playable-ish in some shape or form. I don't know. It will be decent with a new Lucario. I don't know, man. It's still, I mean, with a new Lucario, we want to have a great difference between our benches, but it doesn't mean that the opponent is going to have a huge bench. I mean, yeah, we do have the target whistle though, but isn't N just better in that deck anyways? the opponent is going to take knockouts. We're going to play N. We're going to draw a lot of cards. So I don't know. It doesn't seem like. What are we cutting to add last as a recommendation? Sycamore, N, all seem better choices. So even Birch seems better than this. Mega Catcher. Doesn't seem like it's a great card. You basically switch one of your opponent's bench Mega Evolution Pokemon with his or her active Pokemon. You don't have to flip coins, so it's a 100% catcher, but it's only on a Mega. So more Mega hate, and we are not even seeing Mega Pokemon right now, or a lot of them, so it's just beating on the poor guy, on the Mega Pokemon, even more. So I don't think people are going to be playing Mega Catchers, because there's not so many Mega Pokemon that this is profitable to spend your precious deck slots with such cards that you don't really need at all. So I don't think Mega Catcher is going to see a lot of play. But now we are moving to potentially, or I don't think it's arguable. It's the best card in the set. It's N. We're getting it back. I really like this art. I think I'm going to grab the new Ns. It's chilling with Zorua in there. I like that. I like it better than my old Ns that I have right now. Although mine are foil and all that. But I want to play with this N. I think it's better looking. And yeah, it's a great card. Actually have a lot to say about N, but I think I'm going to save that. And I'm going to save it for my podcast. As you guys know, I mentioned I'm starting a podcast now. Actually, I think we delayed. This week has been super full for me again, so I've been very busy. So I kind of delayed posting the episode 0 of my podcast again, but I will do it potentially today or tomorrow. And that's going to be the episode 0. But as I mentioned, I want to talk about N in the podcast because I feel like there's so much to be said about it, and we're going to look for some other player to bring as a guest in the show, someone that doesn't like N because I like it as a card, spoiler alert. And I want to have a discussion with someone that doesn't agree with me and doesn't like the card. So yeah, that's for the, I guess, episode 1 of the podcast, if you guys like it. So I guess I'll save myself what I have to say about N because there's a lot to be said about it. Just want to mention something. People are saying Night March is going to suffer because of N, and I don't agree with that at all. I don't think ending Night March down to 4 cards, or even to 2 after they have taken pretty much all of their prizes, is going to solve your problems. Because at that point they have their deck so trimmed out that they are going to be stuck with 3 cards because they are going to draw for their turn. So out of 3 cards in the late game for Night March, they probably played all their battle compressors, and they are ready to just play a VS Seeker or a Trainer's Mail or something and find whatever they like, because their deck is down to all the best cards. So I don't think N is going to be that great in that regard. I've heard a lot of people talk about how Night March is going to suffer a lot from N, but I don't think that's true at all. Let's see what you guys are saying in here. Mega Catcher makes me wish Pokemon had a side deck. Yeah, like a sideboard, right? Post-rotation Megas might be better unless Night March gets reprinted. Yeah, that's true. Hopefully so, because I think we have a better game if Megas are better, because you have to work a lot more to get them into play. And art meta discussion, yeah. Oh, João Lopes, here you are, man. João is the I was talking about our podcast in here. João is the co-host for the podcast that I've been telling you guys about. So hopefully we can get the podcast, the episode 0 of the podcast, out as quickly as we can. I think that I've been listening to the sound, and I think it's ready to post. So I think tonight I'm going to post it on the channel, hopefully. They're making Megas too unplayable now. If they could reuse regular EX's attack like bricks, then it might be more playable. Yeah, I don't think that's the way to go. I think you just have to make it so that they don't suffer as much, like by printing stuff like Night March. It doesn't take you don't have to work so hard, and you deal as much damage as the Megas. So why play Megas, right? So will you post a channel announcement when it comes out? What, the podcast? I'm going to post the podcast in the channel, so you guys will know about it. We'll post it on SoundCloud eventually, I guess, but we haven't even created a SoundCloud yet, so we will have to do that before we post the podcast, though, because or else someone might register the name or something like that, and we don't really want that to happen. But yeah, we have to take care of that tonight. So we already waited too long. Night March is getting reprinted. We're not sure about that. Let's hope not, because if Night March gets, the problem for me is not Night March getting reprinted. It's pretty much everything else getting reprinted. So it's the whole same format. So we're not getting any rotation at all. If that expansion comes out, basically that means there's no rotation, because everything that's important stays in the format. So yeah. Dugong won all their pre-release matches. Oh, I haven't really looked into Dugong. Sorry about that. I missed the card. I assumed it was garbage, so I stepped over it. But some cards, yeah, are really good in the pre-release. I noticed that Hawlucha was decent because it draws you cards, and also the attack might paralyze. So that's also something that we can play in the pre-release to make it our decks a lot better. So. Let's move on. We have some fossils here. We have Pokemon Fan Club. Power Memory, we already talked a lot about this card. It just makes Zygarde EX awesome finisher because you can just destroy your opponent's Pokemon, but you have to discard 3 energy attached to it, which kind of sucks, but not really, because if this is like our last attack, you're just... the game is just ending, so you don't really need to recharge it. And if you do, there's also Carbink, as you guys know. So we can bring all the energy back into the Zygarde on the following turn. We have Random Receiver. Guys, please remind me, was this card in the format? I don't think it was, right? I think it was rotated out, and now we're getting it back. Right? I'm not really sure if we had it or not. I know there's a gold Random Receiver, so maybe that was making it still legal in Standard, but I'm not so sure. It does seem like a very nice card. I kind of wonder why we haven't seen more of this. It wasn't... What do you mean? It wasn't rotated? So, I don't know. It kind of seems like a good card, doesn't it? I don't know. Maybe it isn't. Okay. If it isn't rotated out, and... I don't know if you guys are saying it isn't rotated or if it wasn't in the format. I'm not sure, because it does seem like a decent card, and I kind of wonder why people weren't playing it. We can move on. We're getting a Scorched Earth reprint. Shauna reprint! Yay, Shauna! This card sucks. Why would anyone play Shauna with N in the format? I don't know. Team Rocket's Handiwork. It isn't in the format. When it was heavily played. Yeah. Exactly, I agree. The thing with Random Receiver is that it gives you more options as far as supporters go. Imagine that you have, I don't know, Sycamore in hand. It might still be good because you might want something else like the Lysander, and you don't lose that much by playing it. Maybe you are forced to discard it, but even with N in the format, I don't know, it seems great to have a way to draw into supporters. It wasn't in the standard format, okay. Team Rocket's Handiwork. Yeah, the artwork is pretty cool. I mean, you see all the rocket grunts in here. Actually, I don't think this card is that bad. I mean, it is a supporter, but if you're playing a milling deck, I think you play this card for sure, at least as a one-off, because you can get it back with VS Seeker. And it's one of the best rates that you have as far as discarding cards go from the top of your deck, your opponent's deck. Milling cards. I guess the best milling card that we have is the Trick Shovel. And this is just a better rate out of an item card. So you potentially discard 4 cards out of their deck, and I think that's the best thing that we can get out of an item. More than that would kind of be a little bit of an abuse, I think. So yeah, I think as an attack on Weezing it sucks, but as a supporter card I think it's actually not that bad. Yeah, I mean, it's easier to discard with Weezing because you can stick the Trick Coin in there. but with this thing, it's not an attack, so we can make sure to play this card every single turn, and if you're lucky, you get to discard a lot of cards. We get Ultra Ball back, which is cool because it helps with the pre-release, and we get Double Colorless Energy back, and which is cool because this one has a new art, which is pinkish. I like the pink hue. I'm actually going to switch mine for this one. I like the pink one better. And then we have Strong Energy, which means that it's not going to rotate out. So strong Pokemon, fighting Pokemon are still going to be a thing. So kind of means that we are probably going to lose Fighting Stadium and Corina, but we're not going to lose pretty much anything else. I mean, we also lose Lucario, which is kind of a shame, and Lucha, which are two very decent Pokemon that have different weaknesses as far as fighting types go, but I don't think the decks lose too much in that regard. So I think fighting decks are still going to be a thing in the next format after the rotation. So yeah, that's the set. We have the full arts in here. Once again, the Umbreon looks way better in the full art version. Most of them look pretty nice in the full art, like this Altaria. Oh, this wow! I love this full art actually. I love that there's the Rocket, the R from Rocket, and the guys are all looking tough. Thug life. Okay, that's the set review. Your guys are also free to comment, because this video is going to be posted on the channel, of course, as usual. And we've been going for how much time? How much longer? 2 hours and 20 minutes. Wow, this has been a very long video. So I'm going to close out pretty soon. So I'm just going to take this last minutes to thank you guys for showing up. Let's see how many of you are in here right now. 14, okay. It's a nice amount, I guess. Thank you guys for showing up and for talking with me and going through this set with me and discussing it. I hope you had fun. I think this is a pretty interesting set. It's going to bring some cool things to the format, although I don't think the biggest impact is going to be right now, but after the rotation. I think the best things is okay, obviously N is going to be a player in the format. Obviously all the fighting stuff is going to be playable in the format. Obviously Marowak is going to be strong in the format. Even before the rotation, but I think the best things about the set are going to be after the rotation, because suddenly Alakazam, I think, looks way better than it does right now with Night March looming. So yeah, that's, I guess, the set review. Anything else you guys want to say before I close? Random person 71, so long, see ya. Lucario X got printed in the Japanese set of Pokemon Championship. Really? But does that mean it's going to be reprinted here as well? I'm not sure. Oh, but isn't the Pokemon Champions the thing where they also printed Night March in? That means that, once again, if they print that set here, it means that we're not getting any rotation at all, because I think the only relevant card that's not in Generations or that set or a tin is Crobat. Because Golbat is in Generations, Crobat isn't. And we get Yveltal EX in tins, and we get Baby Yveltal in Generations also. And then we get pretty much all the remaining cards in that set if that thing is printed. Keep up the good work. Okay, thank you so much. Also Mega Beedrill. Yeah, but Mega Beedrill might get printed in another set and they just don't print the rest of it here. I don't know. It does seem like weird that the Japanese are going to have a different standard format than we are. That does seem super awkward. I don't know if they want to do that. There has been a time actually that they told me that was before my time as a player, where there's been no rotation announced. They just basically say, okay, we're not going to rotate any sets out this year. So that was kind of, I guess, strange, but that might happen again, or even not the rotation itself, but having a reprint set. And remember, there were legendary treasures back in the day, and that thing had a lot of very good cards as well. Like you had Mewtwo EX and Darkrai EX in the format for like 4 years, from 2012 to 2014 or 15 or something like that. So it's not something that has not been seen before. So I don't know. I know it sucks to have all the same decks again, but it's just a matter of them reprinting counters to them. I don't know. So Okay, the video has gone for too long. I'm going to close. Thank you guys for showing up once again. And if you're watching this after I'm recording, you can obviously comment in the description section below. And I guess I'll see you guys next time. Bye.